It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 651. Small countries in the Balkan Peninsula are established. It is impossible that all the things in the world are just about the Netherlands. On July 1, 1878, the Newton-Heath-Lear team, the predecessor of the British football team Manchester United, was established. On July 2, 1878, the military giant of the ancient Far Eastern power, General Zhou, recovered the southern border. On July 3, 1878, several places under the rule of the Orthodox Ottoman Empire, such as Bulgaria, Serbia, and Romania on the Balkan Peninsula, sought to break away from the rule of the Ottoman Empire and declared independence. On July 5, the Ottoman Empire deployed 100,000 troops on the northern border of the Ottoman Empire with Bulgaria and Serbia, testing Bulgaria and other places and demanding that they give up the idea. However, they were rejected by Bulgaria, Serbia, Romania, and other places and established their own kingdom government with the support of the Tsarist Russian Empire. However, since Bulgaria, Serbia and Romania only received support from the Russian Empire, and the timing coincided with a prime minister-level summit of the International Court of Justice member states being held in The Hague, the Netherlands, the Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries invited all countries to attend a special meeting on the Balkan Peninsula dispute. The Russian Empire could not withstand the Western powers of the British Empire, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. In the end, the Russian Empire and the Kingdom of Bulgaria took a step back. Bulgaria was divided into three parts. The Kingdom of Bulgaria was established in the north, and Eastern Rumelia and Macedonia were established in the south, while the other two places remained unchanged. However, at the meeting, the powers also hoped to rebuild the order of the Balkan Peninsula. In the meeting led by Gerrit de Vries, the interests of Britain, Russia and the Austro-Hungarian Empire were balanced. The participating countries also included other European powers and the Ottoman Empire. After the meeting, the relationship between the Russian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, which had been reconciled because of the end of the Crimean War, gradually deteriorated, and the ethnic issues in the Balkan Peninsula were not satisfactorily resolved. After centuries of rule by the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria and several Orthodox Slavic countries including Romania, Serbia, Macedonia, and Eastern Rumelia finally gained recognition from powerful countries after the meeting and became independent nation-states. At the meeting started to revise the terms of the Treaty of San Stefano to allow the Ottoman Empire to retain Constantinople. This move was made by the Western powers in Europe to prevent the Russian Empire from continuing to expand to the Balkan Peninsula after continuing to suppress the Ottoman Empire. At the end of this meeting, all participating countries signed the Treaty of The Hague, which was originally the Treaty of Berlin chaired by Bismarck, the Prime Minister of the German Empire. In this Treaty of The Hague, Bulgaria was divided into three parts, namely Bulgaria, Macedonia, and Eastern Rumelia. In addition, Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro were established, and Bosnia and Herzegovina was divided into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. At the same time, the Ottoman Empire also made an unknown deal with Britain. On July 8, 1878, the Ottoman Empire and Britain announced that the Ottoman Empire had ceded the rule of Cyprus to the British Empire. However, this angered the Kingdom of Greece, which therefore announced the expulsion of the Ottoman Empire's ambassador to Greece. The Russian Empire made a lot of efforts in the Balkan Peninsula this time, at a huge cost, but in the end, under the opposition of Western European powers, Alexander II's Greater Bulgaria plan after the Treaty of The Hague failed. On the contrary, the German Empire, which was originally neutral in the center, was at the conference. Bismarck strongly supported the Austro-Hungarian Empire to take Bosnia and Herzegovina, which indirectly allowed the Austro-Hungarian Empire to reap the benefits and easily seize the power to manage Bosnia and Herzegovina. It indirectly improved the relationship between Berlin and Vienna, and the two countries formed an alliance in the conference, but it also caused the collapse of the Three Empires Alliance, which was already facing ruin but still retained by the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Russian Empire. On the one hand, Bismarck used the German-Austrian alliance to win over the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and on the other hand, he used the Second Triple Alliance to try to make the injured Alexander II change his mind, which made his alliance system more complicated and made the relationship between Tsarist Russia and Germany and Austria increasingly tense. For this reason, William IV, who was far away in Melbourne, had to decide that Bismarck was indeed a rare genius in the history of Western diplomacy, and he was simply playing with other countries in the field of European diplomacy. On July 10, 1878, it was originally planned to hold a 10-day Prime Minister, President, level summit of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, but because of the sudden situation in the Balkans, the time was doubled. At the end of this conference, all member states of the organization agreed to communicate more for international law. At the same time, because of the strong political nature, in addition to legal issues, all countries have been calling on Britain and the Netherlands to negotiate and resolve the dispute over the Strait of Malacca in the Far East. At the same time, the prime ministers or presidents of various countries asked North and South France to exercise restraint and asked Napoleon III in Paris and Adolphe Thiers in Lyon to start a dialogue. At the same time, countries were also uneasy about the tense situation between the United States and the Confederate States of America, and called on Stephen Douglas, President of the Confederate States of America in the North, and Alexander Stephens, President of the Confederate States of America in the South, to jointly maintain peace in North America. Finally, countries also called on Greece and the Ottoman Empire to resume dialogue and resolve the dispute, but Cyprus has now fallen into the hands of Britain, which makes the problem difficult to resolve. On July 14, 1878, King Emmanuel II of the Kingdom of Italy died, and Crown Prince Umberto I of Italy became the new King of the Kingdom of Italy. Because of the current tense international situation, although the new Italian King Umberto I wanted to hold a state funeral and launch a state funeral diplomacy with various countries, the effect was not high. Most of the countries sent ministerial-level officials to participate. Even Italy's new ally, Adolphe Thiers of the French Third Republic, only sent his vice president to participate. On July 16, 1878, the world's first telephone exchange was established in the South Australia province of the Netherlands. The Dutch East India Company announced that it would complete the deployment of all provinces in the entire Australian continent in the next August, and then it would complete the deployment of telephone exchanges in all Dutch territories in half a year. On July 19, 1878, Thomas Edison of the Dutch East India Company applied for a patent for a record player, which immediately attracted the world's attention, because Edison had become a vein of world technology, just like the technology company called Apple in later generations every time it released a new product. On July 25, 1878, the world's first telephone was launched in Australia, the Netherlands. On July 27, 1878, Japan, the newly rising country of the sun in the Far East, abolished Ryukyu as a county and renamed it Okinawa. On July 29, 1878, the Edison Recorder Company was officially established and became a subsidiary of the Dutch East India Company. On August 1, 1878, Britain launched the Second Invasion War in Afghanistan, and the war was brutal. On August 9, 1878, British scientist Swan invented the world's second practical light bulb after Edison, but was accused of infringement by Edison because Swan's light bulb was made according to Edison's principle. For this reason, the Kingdom of the Netherlands expressed dissatisfaction, while Britain supported Swan, so the relationship between Britain and the Netherlands became worse. When the world was in chaos, a piece of bad news attracted the world's attention. On August 10, 1878, Queen Matilda Zofia of Greece, the former princess of William I of the Duchy of Württemberg, the mother of King William IV of the Netherlands, the former Queen of the Netherlands, the wife of the current King William II of the Kingdom of Greece, died. She was born in 1818 and was 60 years old. Queen Zofia was the daughter of Ekaterina Pavlovna, the fourth daughter of Paul I of the Russian Empire, and Anna Pavlovna, the mother of William II, was the sixth daughter of Paul I. Alexander II's father, Nicholas I, was born after the two Grand Duchesses. Queen Zofia, born in July 1818, is also the cousin of the current Russian Emperor Alexander II, born in April 1818, and William II, born in February 1817. Although the Duchy of Battenberg was annexed by the German Empire, the family was still retained by the German Empire and continued to serve as the Grand Duke of the Duchy, but in name only. Therefore, after the news of Queen Zofia's death came out, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, with these four places as the center, all issued heavy condolences. After the death of King Emmanuel II of Italy, the world's participation in the country's state funeral was low. When Greece said it would hold a state funeral this time, the whole world actually expressed its participation, stating that the king or president would attend, and at least the prime minister or vice president of each country would be sent to attend. Compared with King Emmanuel II of Italy, the state funeral of Emmanuel II received a relatively cold response. It was difficult for the new king of Italy, Umberto I, to use the state funeral of Emmanuel II to get closer to the kings and prime ministers of various countries. The world's response to the two state funerals was so different that it formed a strong contrast. The Italian state funeral came from dozens of countries and regions in the world, and only 20 countries had ministers or ministerial-level attendees, except King Louis I of Portugal, the son-in-law of Emmanuel II. What about Queen Zofia? Everyone can only wait and see. The unification of Italy was accomplished by Emmanuel II, but this was at the expense of the interests of the Austrian Empire, now the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In particular, the Venetian dispute caused the Italian-Austrian War. Moreover, Victor Emmanuel II had a bad relationship with the Pope, who instigated the Catholic world to isolate Italy, which made Victor Emmanuel II very anxious. Therefore, Victor Emmanuel II had a bad relationship with the Catholic world, Southern Europe, and Italy was too small and lacked influence. In the end, although Umberto I of Italy had good ideas, Victor Emmanuel II's diplomatic plan for a state funeral could not be implemented. Chapter 652. The association between the two state funerals in the eastern and western Mediterranean. 1878, when King Emmanuel II of Italy visited Milan, he was carrying out his domestic policy and was giving a speech on the street when he was suddenly shot by an Italian Catholic. He was shot twice and died after 5 hours of treatment in a Milan hospital. He was 58 years old. On August 10, 1878, at 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 18 seconds a.m. Greek time, the Greek royal palace announced that Queen Zofia of Greece passed away peacefully at the age of 60. Queen Zofia gave birth to 3 sons during her time in the Netherlands. In 1840, she gave birth to her eldest son, William Hendrik, who was King William IV of the Netherlands. The second son, William Carroll, was born in 1843, but died at the age of 7 in 1850. In 1851, she gave birth to her youngest son, William Frederick, who is now the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Greece. Later, the eldest son William IV and his daughter-in-law Queen Alexandra had already given birth to 2 princes and princesses, while the Greek Crown Prince Frederick and Crown Princess Louise gave birth to the 3rd grandson in 1873 and a princess in 1877. That is, when Queen Zofia passed away, she had 6 grandchildren. King Emmanuel II of Italy and the former Queen of the Netherlands and Queen Zofia of Greece were successively given state funerals. Strangely, King Emmanuel II of Italy was used for state funeral diplomacy, but the effect was not good. But Queen Zofia did not need it, but she became a historical model of state funeral diplomacy, and the funeral was extremely honorable. King Emmanuel II, who died less than a month ago, did not get the treatment of Queen Zofia, who was only the Queen of Greece, as a king. Umberto I was exposed by European media that the Italian government tried to use the funeral to engage in condolence diplomacy, but became the object of ridicule by various countries. According to the report of the European Times on July 15, 1878, after the assassination of Emmanuel II on July 14, the Italian government and Umberto I received many telegrams of condolence from the prime ministers and governments of various countries, so the Italian government decided to hold a state funeral and launch condolence diplomacy. However, compared with the state funeral of Queen Zofia of Greece, the response to the state funeral of Emmanuel II was relatively cold. Umberto I intended to use the state funeral of Emmanuel II to get closer to the prime ministers and leaders of major countries, but it was eventually broken. In the list published by the Italian government, the reaction of European countries was not strong. Among the European royal families, only the son-in-law of King Louis I of Portugal attended in the end. The report also said that Italian public opinion pointed out that although Emmanuel II had made great contributions to the unification of the country, his relationship with the Roman Catholic Church greatly reduced the state funeral. Therefore, surrounded by Catholics everywhere in Italy, the state funeral was unpopular. Even many bishops and other clergy in Rome and Milan were unwilling to attend. Even in a survey conducted by the European Times, only 50% of Italians supported a state funeral for Victor Emmanuel II. Although not as many people opposed it, it reached 35%, and 15% did not oppose or support it. A state funeral that only 50% of the people approved of gave people the impression that it was a bit unworthy of its name. On the other hand, the reaction to the death of Queen Zofia of Greece was that a coffin passed through the streets, highlighting the love of most Greeks for her. Outside of Greece, the Kingdom of the Netherlands is more supported by the people than Greece. After all, Queen Zofia was the Queen of the Netherlands for more than 27 years, 1839 to 1866, and then she followed William II to Greece and served as the Queen of Greece for 12 years. To be honest, Emmanuel II cannot be compared with Queen Zofia. One is a king who competes with other countries for territory and offends neighboring countries, and also fell out with Napoleon III, and the other is the cousin of Alexander II of the Russian Empire. The Queen Mother of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Queen of Greece have too wide a geographical scope. Don't forget that the second daughter-in-law, Crown Princess Louise of Greece, is the fourth princess of Queen Victoria of the British Empire. The first daughter-in-law, Queen Alexandra of the Netherlands, is the eldest princess of the Danish royal family. Emmanuel II, who is known for his strength, is unpopular and a controversial politician who has been rolling in the political arena all his life. One is popular in Europe as the mother of the country and the relative of the emperor, and is loved by everyone. However, the two state funerals in the east and west of the Mediterranean are very close in time, which inevitably makes people compare them with each other. The world reactions caused by the two are very different, forming a strong contrast. More than 100 prime ministers, presidents or ministers from all countries and regions in the world attended Queen Zofia's funeral, while what about King Emmanuel II? Only 20 ministers from various countries attended. Secondly, Queen Zofia died peacefully, while King Emmanuel II was stabbed to death on the street. King Emmanuel II has been in power for 30 years from 1849 to now. Queen Zofia has been in power for nearly 40 years, with many children and grandchildren. The Netherlands and Greece have risen, especially under the rule of her eldest son William IV, whose global influence is comparable to that of the first power, the British Empire. The relationship between countries and the Netherlands is more allies than partners, and they have made friends with the Netherlands. This has made the influence of the Dutch Queen Mother rise sharply. Coupled with the identity of the Queen of Greece, it is also awe-inspiring. Therefore, this 60-year-old lady is like a mother of 3 generations who has lived a long and healthy life. She is not comparable to the King Emmanuel II who died on the street. To put it in a broader sense, Italy behind Emmanuel II and the Netherlands and Greece behind Queen Zofia are not the same. Italy is only a Mediterranean power, and it is even more difficult to compare with France and Spain in southern Europe, not to mention the Ottoman Empire in the east. Greece is in the eastern Mediterranean, and it still restricts Italy's existence. Not to mention the Netherlands, whose global influence even exceeds that of the United Kingdom. And the Netherlands is not only the most economically developed country, is also the most technologically advanced country. At present, the Netherlands is the world's leading industry, and Italy can hardly even catch up with it. After all, the United Kingdom can only follow and copy it. Not to mention the southern European countries with more lazy people. Not to mention the influence of the Netherlands in Europe. The Netherlands is competing with the United Kingdom in Africa, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, which is also unmatched by Italy. In North America, the Dutch control the ruling position of the government of the Confederate States of America, and Italy can only stare and cannot shake it. Under the Nordic Alliance, the influence of the Netherlands is all round, and it is not a southern European country that cannot be regarded as a regional power in Italy. Therefore, compared with Queen Zofia, King Emmanuel II naturally received different treatment at the state funeral. This also reflects that the treatment of the strength of a country is also symmetrical. No one thinks that love is without reason, and no one will hate without reason. The state funerals of Queen Zofia and King Emmanuel II showed Europeans that the rise of the Netherlands had become a reality, and not only Italy, but also the British Empire had a taste of the Netherlands' international status. It all depends on how Britain will respond next. Chapter 653, Learning from Britain's Clever Colonial Rule. How can Italy be compared with the Netherlands? William IV was very disdainful of Italy. Now the Netherlands was transformed by him with reference to the British Empire. The Netherlands can be said to have developed and risen on the track of the previous British Empire. This is for the world hegemony. Italy is not even the hegemon of southern Europe, so William IV naturally looked down on it. In his previous life, William IV analyzed the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom in 2022 and the state funeral of the former Japanese Prime Minister Abe, who is also a member of the Group of Seven and respected Westernization. In the end, he concluded that how could the latter be compared with the Queen of the British Empire? Just like the state funeral of his mother Queen Zofie and the state funeral of King Emmanuel II of Italy. Britain, the former empire on which the sun never sets, has strong ships and powerful guns after the Industrial Revolution. It has colonies all over the world, and the Union Jack is flying everywhere. The 19th century was the British century, followed by the 20th century, which was also the Anglo-Saxon American century. Until the 21st century, white people have been ruling the world for more than 300 years. The two consecutive Anglo-Saxon centuries have had a profound impact on all aspects of the world. As the saying goes, a centipede is dead but not stiff. The British Empire was on the decline after the war, and the former colonies became new countries one after another, but Britain came up with a new idea and established a Commonwealth family. Since the 1950s, the Queen of England has continued to exert her charm in various former colonies with her unique beauty, dignity, nobility and wisdom, while the Japanese emperor has been forgotten by the world. The biggest difference between Britain and Japan may still be in language, culture and system. The strength of the British is that they first colonized every corner of the world, and then cultivated English elites in each colony, through whom the British language, culture and political system took root in the local area. In this regard, the Netherlands has also completed the rooting of language, culture, political system, etc. in all parts of the world. Look at the Netherlands' allies such as Sweden, Denmark and other Nordic countries. The United States of America is also the same, especially the South American allies who have always been very dependent on the Netherlands, and William IV has cultivated the Netherlands' sphere of influence like the British colonies in the past. Today, the Dutch language, Dutch culture and all Dutch systems, except the monarchy constitutional system, have been firmly established in the local provinces. Almost Dutch has become the second or third language of the South American allies. Just like French in France became the language of the nobility upper class in the former colonies in the past, Dutch has now become a noble language in South America and has become a symbol of identity for many South American nobles or upper classes when they talk. Along with colonization is the Netherlands' religious propagation, which is also an extremely sharp brain project. This brain project has transformed the Netherlands' current circle of allies in South America and the Netherlands into an ecosystem that is very beneficial to the Netherlands. The same was true of the British Empire in the 20th century of the previous life. In comparison, the Japanese language, the Japanese Pope and culture are nothing compared to the greatness of the world. Even the Xia language used by the Far Eastern country, with a population of more than 1 billion, pales in comparison with the influence of English in the world. Italy is now far inferior to Japan. After all, the latter's animation is famous all over the world, and Doraemon is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people and is famous all over the world. The latter's various car brands are also so influential. But what about Italy? In fact, it was only in 1861 that the name was changed to Italy. Before that, the Kingdom of Sardinia was just a vassal of the Austrian Empire. Under the rule of later scholars, during the heyday of the British Empire, the combined colonial area accounted for a quarter of the world's land area. After World War II, the former British colonies that became independent countries were generally dominated by English elites and politics. Singapore was no exception, and even powerful countries such as India, the United States, Canada, Australia, etc. were no exception. These elites first received English education in their home country, and then received scholarships to study in the UK. Therefore, many of them are graduates of Cambridge University and London University. Although they oppose colonialism, most of them do not oppose the political system of the British Empire. Instead, they naturally strive for independence and continue the Westminster parliamentary democracy and civil service system after taking office, that is, the civil service system. In particular, they will use their expertise in English as the administrative language, and the elites among civil servants are generally sent to study in British universities. Therefore, they naturally become pro-British and have special feelings for the university that created them. William IV was very impressed by the benefits of this British system in his previous life, so after traveling to this world in 1857, he used it as a blueprint to build the influence of the Netherlands around the world. The higher education of the Netherlands has been built into a world brand. Some time ago, Dutch universities occupied 14 of the top 50 international university rankings, which is the result of William IV's efforts. In particular, the University of Sydney and the University of Melbourne on the far east Australian continent and the University of Amsterdam in Europe have been built by him after more than 10 years to become the second, third and fifth universities in the world. It can be said that it completely occupied the position of the United States in the previous life, crushing the dominant position of Britain in the education sector. This created a strong appeal. Currently, there is a detailed report in the hands of William IV. From 1857, there were less than 200 foreign students in Dutch universities, to 1867, the Netherlands had more than 20,000 students from all over the world, and then 290 years later, in 1877, the number of students from all over the world in Dutch universities exceeded 100,000. This laid a solid foundation for the influence of the Netherlands in the world. Not to mention Italy, even the United Kingdom during the reign of Queen Victoria was unaware of it, and might even mock the Netherlands for allocating more than 25 million Dutch guilders, £1 million, from the Dutch Ministry of Finance every year to attract students from all over the world to study in the Netherlands. The British white people's rule over the colonies in the previous life was indeed particularly clever. In addition to cultural brainwashing, another well-known skill was divide and rule. In this regard, the Japanese are far behind. The Japanese militarists certainly know how to destroy a nation. First, they have to destroy its language and culture, but they only know how to use tough military means, intimidation and coercion, and force people to learn Japanese. They also killed people and planted indelible national hatred. Only when it colonized a certain island for 50 years did it successfully enslave some people ideologically, such as the person who died in 2020 after being successfully brainwashed by the Japanese. This is why William IV admired Britain very much, and it is also the judgment that Italy is difficult to compare with Japan. But Japan is even more difficult to compare with Britain. The colonists are not good people. The British colonial history is actually full of violence, especially when suppressing indigenous uprisings. The methods are even more cruel. It turns out that North America, a colony of the British Empire, also went through a difficult war before it established itself as the United States of America. Carolyn Elkins, a historian at Harvard University who specializes in Africans and African Americans, once traced the atrocities of the British Empire in detail in her book Legacy of Violence, showing off the brutal military suppression of the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya, Africa in 1952, and the torture of prisoners including castration. At that time, the British Army only used the methods it had used to deal with a certain party in Malaysia, including the implementation of emergency decrees, the opening of new villages similar to collectives, and the locking up of more than 1 million Kenyan natives. Fighting, killing, imprisonment, starvation, and disease ultimately led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people. It was not until 2011 that some survivors of the uprising in Kenya successfully sued the British government in London. Finally, under pressure to maintain its moral image, Britain had to express deep regret to Kenya and said it would pay £14 million in compensation to the victims of the year, using money to buy its moral image. British colonization is also a racist. He claimed that the purpose of colonization was to spread civilization to people of color. Black people in Africa were sold as slaves, so there were black slaves in the United States. In 18,943, a great famine occurred in the Bengal region of India, a British colony. After receiving the report, the then British Prime Minister Churchill said disdainfully that Indians reproduced like rabbits, meaning that they would not starve to death. However, the above are only a few of the many evils committed by Britain. What William IV admires most is that Britain has been able to colonize the world for nearly 200 years and has become the country that flaunts the ultimate human power in the world. William IV and others must have felt incredible in their previous lives. Regardless of everyone, as long as they calm down and observe, they will find that the ugly side of this colonial empire seems to have been successfully bleached by Elizabeth II, the Queen who left in 2020, with her charm and beauty. Many people in the former colonies are grateful after being assimilated, and are proud of having been subjects, which is amazing. William IV knew that a senior actor from a world-renowned financial city wrote on his social media account, "Under her protection, a certain port has become a paradise on earth," etc. I wonder if there was any other woman in the world at that time who had such ability? However, the rise and fall of history cannot be reversed by human power. With the death of the British Queen, who can be called a Wonder Woman in the 20th century. In 2022, the fate of Britain is probably over. Anyway, before William IV traveled through time, Britain was almost a local power, and it still needed to take advantage of the world's heat. However, Elizabeth II appointed 15 British prime ministers in her life. Since Churchill, Britain's national strength has declined. Except for Mrs. Thatcher, the prime ministers behind her can be said to be worse than one crab. The son of the Queen, Prince Charles, had been a prince for more than 70 years before he had the opportunity to ascend the throne. It seems that it is difficult to carry forward his mother's great cause. However, William IV disagrees, because the Netherlands currently only needs to absorb the essence of more than 100 years from 1880 to the present in the previous life, which is enough to maintain the international status of the Netherlands. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 654, Things Have Changed in Chile, South America. At present, the Netherlands' position in the world is becoming more and more stable, and it can do more things that are more beneficial to the Netherlands. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think of the situation in South America. When everyone was attracted by the dispute between Britain and the Netherlands in the Strait of Malacca, who knew that William IV had actually included South America in the scope of his chess game with London, especially Chile, Britain's long-standing ally in South America. Thinking of Chile, William IV's eyes flashed with pride. On August 14, 1878, just as the world was stirred by the two weddings of Queen Zofia of Greece and former King Emmanuel II of Italy, the tension between Britain and the Netherlands in the Strait of Malacca had not been eased. Although the situation in the Balkan Peninsula was due to the Hague Treaty, Romania, Bulgaria, Montenegro and other small countries were established as countries. The interests of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire were not satisfied, and the Balkan Peninsula still maintained a fragile balance. At this time, a major event came from South America, which stunned people in Europe and the United States and the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the Far East. Chile in the southwest of South America experienced a military coup on August 13, 1868. The conservative regime continued for nearly 10 years with the support of the army. In 1868, President Mascherano used the army in his hands to serve as president for the third term again. He adopted a pro-military policy, which aroused the dissatisfaction of the Chilean people. At the same time, the internal contradictions of the big asset sister oligarchy intensified, and the Chilean army was also involved, resulting in factions in the Chilean army. In 1873, Mascherano once again used the greatest military power behind him and the support of Britain to serve as the fourth president of Chile, which made many people from different factions in Chile dissatisfied. Among them, the United Military Group composed of officers from other factions of Argentina with nationalism, anti-British and pro-Dutch sentiments, led by General Arturo Lozán, the second largest faction of the military and commander of the troops in Santiago, the capital of Chile, launched an armed coup. They occupied the government building in Santiago, the capital, overthrew the pro-British rule of Mascherano's fourth presidential term, and established the new government of Arturo Lozán. And as the situation evolved, starting from Santiago, the capital of central Chile, various places began to expand the scope of attacking Mascherano's forces. By August 15, in just 3 days, the amazing success of independence had brought a new presidential regime. The British South African fleet, which was about to send troops from the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa to help, hesitated because they had not yet crossed the middle of the Atlantic Ocean between South Africa and Chile, and were attacked by the Chilean government. The pro-British forces in Chile were eradicated. When the news came back to London, the Claxton cabinet government in London was completely shocked. It took 3 days to complete the ouster of a pro-British government, which was not a good sign for the British Empire, which did not have many allies. And since the loss of New Zealand, Chile, located on the southeastern coast of the Pacific, has been a strategic place for Britain to supervise the Netherlands. The Kingdom of the Netherlands was suppressed in the east, west and north directions, with the Malayan Islands in the north of the Dutch East Indies and South Africa in the west. Now Chile, which was the important city for Britain to supervise the Netherlands in the Far East, was lost in such a miraculous way, and it was also in the form of a pro-Dutch regime. This is absolutely unfavorable for Britain. This allowed the Netherlands to break free from the cage set up by Britain for it, and Britain's position in the world's oceans will definitely be very passive. In this regard, Clayton had to consider a serious problem, that is, the current dispute between Britain and the Netherlands in Malacca originated from Britain's prevention of the Netherlands from occupying the strategically important Strait of Malacca, and then preventing the throat of ships at sea from falling into the hands of the Netherlands. But now that Chile has become a pro-Dutch country, the Strait of Magellan and the Drake Passage at the southernmost tip of South America will also become the Netherlands' possession in the future, which has formed a great blow to Britain's desire to continue to control the world's throat. The world's top 10 straits mainly refer to the Strait of Malacca, the English Channel, the Strait of Gibraltar, the Drake Passage, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Korean Strait, the Bering Strait, the Strait of a certain bay, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Ottoman Turkish Strait. These places are intercontinental straits in economically developed areas, straits connecting the oceans, straits that are the only channels, or straits on major routes. They are all throats of maritime traffic, which can control the navigation of ships or shorten the sea voyage, and have very important political, economic and military significance. Britain controls a lot of these straits. Now that the Netherlands is competing for the Strait of Malacca, it has made a feint to the east and attacked the west, silently changing the pro-British Chilean regime, and may remotely seize the Drake Passage and the Strait of Magellan, which makes Claxton feel terrible. And then the method of this incident also makes the Netherlands reach the highest level of danger in his eyes. No one would think that the Netherlands is a kind person, but the method used by the Netherlands now surprised Claxton. So when he came to Queen Victoria at Buckingham Palace with a trembling heart, he couldn't help but express his worries nervously. Queen Victoria's face was also not good. She didn't expect that William IV would let a pro-British force collapse in such an unprecedented way just 3 days after the death of his mother, Queen Zofie. Claxton sighed at this time. When the Dutch came to power in the United States, the Netherlands fought with Prussia and finally defeated Prussia using financial means, but that was under legal and compliant methods. But now, the Netherlands has used a crude method to change the regime. It is simple and effective. This makes me shudder. Your Majesty, the Netherlands has been working hard to cultivate talents from all over the world in recent years. Chile's success has become a model for these pro-Dutch elites. I am afraid that these people may not be content. With Chile's success in front, there may be countless Arturo Lozon in the future. Queen Victoria also showed a heavy face when she heard this. She didn't expect that the Netherlands would easily support Arturo Lozon to come to power. Chile's long-standing pro-Britishness made Britain lower its vigilance against them, but she didn't expect Chile to be out of British control like this. If other pro-British countries are like this in the future, Queen Victoria also showed worry when she thought about it. She looked at the intelligence materials in her hand, her eyes slightly fluttering, and then she said in sudden realization, "It shows that this Arturo Lozon received university education at Leiden University in the Netherlands in 1860. Yes, Claxton answered in a startled manner, then faced with Queen Victoria's meaningful look, he suddenly came to his senses. Claxton said, "The Queen means that those who are close to the Netherlands in the future should all have a background of being educated in the Netherlands. Isn't that right? As long as we follow this line of thought, we can suppress those with this background and eliminate many hidden dangers." Not only in London, Bismarck and William I in Berlin were also shocked. The Netherlands actually controlled another South American country. No matter how you look at it, South America is almost becoming an ally of the Netherlands. Chapter 655 Coup. German Empire, Chancellery. When German Chancellor Bismarck received the news about what happened in Chile in South America, he was shocked. In the process of a country's operation, political and economic crises are often triggered due to the ruling group's growing greed, extortion, or laissez-faire, militarism, or biased policies, wrong decisions, etc. Especially when the government is extremely corrupt and the economy is close to collapse, political change is often inevitable. At this time, no matter what purpose the changers have, they will follow the trend, follow public opinion, and initiate political changes. This kind of political policy that saves the world and puts a stop to danger will be deeply popular for a while, but whether it can be truly successful depends on the speed of resolving the crisis. Chile is currently facing the crisis left by former President Mascherano after the success of the political change. Chile seems to have echoed Arturo Lozon's rebellion because the people are living in poverty and it is difficult to maintain their lives. If the latter cannot improve the livelihood of Chile as soon as possible, then the outcome of Arturo Lozon in the future will be similar to that of Mascherano. As a supporter behind the new Chilean government, what should the Netherlands do to help Arturo Lozon in Chile out of his predicament? In addition, facing the backlash from the British government, has the Netherlands prepared a way to deal with it? Bismarck has reason to absolutely believe that Britain will not give up. After all, this kind of thing will happen once and for all. Today it is Chile, Britain's South American ally. What if it happens in the Confederate States of America, in the south of the United States tomorrow? Or is it Belgium, Britain's ally in Europe? So he believes that Britain must plug this mouth. If it opens a big mouth, Britain will face huge losses. So the situation facing the Netherlands in the future is not good. But he smiled comfortably. Now almost all the countries surrounding the German Empire are tied up by various things. Britain and the Netherlands are trapped in a dead end in the Strait of Malacca and the current British and Dutch tug-of-war in Chile, and have no time to take care of the German Empire. As for France in the south, it is because of the division between the north and the south that it is now unable to take care of itself. Napoleon III is probably planning how to prevent the German Empire from interfering in the internal unification of France, and racking his brains to think about it. However, this man is really naive. The German Empire and Britain will not easily unify France, because no one wants a strong neighbor to appear. The best way is naturally to maintain the status quo. The Austro-Hungarian Empire in the east, because he strongly supported Austria-Hungary in the Treaty of The Hague, obtained the right to rule Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now the German Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire have resumed diplomatic exchanges, and the relationship between the two countries seems to be on the fast track. A passionate young man seeking love and a deep-seated woman who has not found a lover for a long time, naturally, under the strong pursuit of the German Empire. The Austro-Hungarian Empire could not withstand such a fierce attack and was unwilling to resist. The two countries hit it off and became quasi-allies. Denmark and Sweden in Northern Europe are difficult to match their ambitions and strengths, so they can be omitted. At present, if the German Empire is seriously counted, only the Russian Empire is the next confidant. Thinking of this, he suddenly revealed a sinister sneer. Kingdom of the Netherlands, Melbourne, Far East Palace. The rise and fall of a country is intrinsically linked to the change of political power. There are roughly 3 ways to change the national power. The first is to achieve it through armed struggle, the second is legal succession in the system, and the third is political. When the current 2 methods are difficult to use together unconditionally, the third method is the most effective shortcut. For this reason, in ancient and modern times, at home and abroad, for thousands of years, in human history and politics, political seizure of power is always one scene after another, just like a subordinate drama. Around the magic wand of the supreme power of the country, I don't know how many people have racked their brains and fought desperately, and I don't know how many crowns have fallen and new dynasties have risen, and this may not change or disappear in the future. This is a contest full of wisdom, blood, cunning and strength. There are both silent abdications, such as royal court politics, and sword fighting, and soldiers backed by force. On the surface, whether it is the president stepping down, the prime minister resigning, the minister resigning, the speaker being sealed, or the general being dismissed, the party leader dying, etc., it is nothing more than the handover of the highest power stick, but in fact it reflects many social contradictions and sharp struggles for ruling power, including social political crises and ethnic sectarian, new and old forces, personal power desire expansion, arbitrary power rule, serious political differences, and possible external forces intervening, etc. The tension and handshakes, the celebration and collusion, the cruelty and brutality, the benevolence and morality, the glory and the misery are all intertwined and performed here. Which is thrilling and sighing. In this struggle for the highest power, the life outlook, political outlook, and moral outlook of senior figures have been fully tested by the country's political power system, rights protection mechanism, special political tools, and people's hearts and minds. Because we can learn lessons and enlightenment from the tragic and comedic coups in history, and we can also examine the rise and fall of a country, the secrets of the speed of social evolution, etc. from the behind the scenes of coups. Political seizure of power is a national scandal, and family scandals should not be made public. Because although there have been countless coups in the world for thousands of years, the outside world generally only knows the general situation, and a considerable number of people do not know the inside story. Without knowing the inside story, It is difficult to tell the truth about the coup. William IV smiled and stared at his eldest son, Crown Prince Albert, slowly unraveling the truth of what is happening in Chile. Father means that what happened in Chile was a premeditated, planned, and successful coup. His face still maintained the young and tender face of just entering middle school, but his eyes were shining from time to time. Obviously, the heir to the Dutch throne understood what William IV had just said. If the kings of other countries were here, they would be very shocked, because William IV actually started teaching his princes to get in touch with these things too early at the age of 14, which is very unusual for other countries. After all, look at the British Crown Prince Edward. It was not until he was 18 that Queen Victoria allowed him to participate in British political discussions. So William IV began to teach Prince Albert politics when he was 14 years old. This is definitely a good opportunity for Prince Albert, the heir to the royal family of other countries. Yes, political coups are always premeditated. Unplanned coups almost always fail. So, this time in Chile, we caught Britain off guard without intending to, and let our pro-Dutch agent in Chile drive out Chile's President Mascherano and replace him with General Arturo Lozán of the military. William IV's frank statement made Albert excited. This remote control of other countries' internal political changes that benefited the Netherlands made Crown Prince Albert's blood boil. Father, how can you guarantee that the new president with the background of General Arturo Lozán will remain loyal to the Kingdom of the Netherlands? I have seen many people in history who were completely different before and after taking office. I am afraid that this new president will turn his face and be ruthless. When facing the British Empire, he will not have the courage to resist and will leave the Netherlands and continue to be loyal to Britain. Crown Prince Albert carefully expressed his thoughts. After all, Britain currently has a fleet stationed in South Africa, which monitors the Atlantic Ocean while also monitoring and assisting the British fleet. The Strait of Magellan and the Drake Passage in the southern part of the Atlantic Ocean are just separated from South Africa by the southern end of the Atlantic Ocean. If Arturo Lozán faces the British Navy, it may be difficult for him to maintain his original intention of standing on the side of the Netherlands. William IV saw Albert's serious look, especially the seriousness revealed under the other's young face. William IV immediately felt that there was a successor, although the other party did not have the advantage of time travel like himself. William IV said, "You asked just now whether the Netherlands has a plan and premeditated to launch a government led by Arturo Lozán there, and naturally we will not ignore the challenges we face after success." Prince Albert asked curiously, "What method did father use to do it?" If someone else had asked this question, William IV would have naturally ignored it, but who can blame the child in front of him for being his eldest son? William IV then said patiently, "For a president who came to power through politics, we naturally have plenty of ways to make him more loyal to the Netherlands." Seeing Albert's curiosity, William IV said shockingly, "First, the Netherlands can immediately put Arturo Lozán in the midst of condemnation by the international community, so that when he faces an international public opinion situation that is not favorable to him, he will naturally move closer to the Netherlands. This is one. Second, we can allow Arturo Lozán to reach a point where his relationship with the United Kingdom is difficult to reverse. For example, what if the British Embassy in Chile finds that the Chilean thugs have successfully broken into the embassy, and a British death suddenly occurs in the British Embassy in Chile? Prince Albert said immediately, "In that case, with the arrogance of Britain, even if Clayton wants to ease the relationship between Britain and Chile, under domestic public opinion, he will have to distance himself from Chile." William IV smiled and said, "Not only that, Britain even took the lead in attacking the Arturo Lozán government at the International Court of Justice in The Hague, requiring all member states not to recognize Arturo Lozán's government. Do you think Chile will be able to get close to Britain at this time?" Prince Albert said, "I'm afraid that at this time, stepping up to get closer to the Netherlands is their only choice." Third. Chapter 656, The Coveted Chilean Mining Industry. William IV said, "Third, what happened in Chile has caused other South American countries such as Argentina, Peru, Bolivia and other countries to worry about restoration. At this time, South American countries will also consciously isolate Chile. Chile needs to get out of isolation in the future. As an ally of South American countries, the Netherlands should hold on to the Netherlands more tightly, which is what Arturo Lozán needs most in the future." Prince Albert looked at William IV in admiration. At a young age, he understood everything. It seemed that everything was really under the control of William IV. On August 13, 1878, Chile launched a rebellion, and the world was shocked. The British Empire's Clayton cabinet government stood up first. Prime Minister Clayton even announced at 10 Downing Street that he would not recognize the Arturo Lozon government because they believed that the new Chilean government did not comply with the law. Clayton even asked the International Court of Justice in The Hague to hold a member state meeting to discuss everything that happened in Chile and recommend the expulsion of Chile from its membership. I think the Arturo Lozon regime is violating international rules. I want to tell certain people who support the regime that this way of playing is very dangerous. It has set a precedent and has a huge impact on countries around the world. I think if everyone ignores what happened in Chile, then this bad luck will most likely fall on the countries of all members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague in the future. At that time, perhaps the countries that the member states believe in will face disasters, just like the humanitarian disaster currently happening in Chile. Naturally, Clayton's statement was refuted by Arturo Lozon. I don't know why the British Prime Minister Claxton said such shocking words, but I am very sure that the great Prime Minister Claxton has become the British Prime Minister for the third time. He represents the Whig Party, one of the two major parties in the UK. I don't think that a person who has been Prime Minister 3 times, a veteran in British politics, and a politician who has been fighting for power with the Tories all his life, how many people believe what he says? Of course, the British may be the only audience. But what I want to tell him is that internationally, the words of this British Prime Minister are disdained by most people, because Britain's colonial policy in the world is infuriating. A country that regards colonizing other countries as evil actually talks about humanitarianism and legal issues with Chile and the world. Don't you think this is even more incredible? Also, Britain is currently in a situation similar to yesterday's dusk in South America. Chile had an unequal status relationship with Britain during the previous government period, and we in Chile were on the exploited side. President Mascherano signed many unequal treaties with Britain, so Chile is getting poorer and more enslaved. Naturally, we will not allow this to continue, because we resisted President Mascherano's practices in his government, and finally we succeeded. We are currently sorting out the secret treaties between President Mascherano and Britain. Don't worry. We will open them to the outside world after they are sorted out. The so-called British Empire, which is good for Chile and cares about Chile, has played a big role in Chile's increasing decline. Well, we have to admit that this new strong man in Chile is not only clever, but also has a powerful mouth. However, the Netherlands will naturally not miss the opportunity to ridicule Britain. The Netherlands believes that what is happening in Chile is not just because of what everyone sees, but we should also understand the main reasons why Chile is in today's situation. According to news from Santiago, Chile, almost all of Chile's minerals in recent years are operated by British companies, and the locals who helped in mining only received wages for food and clothing, while British companies made a fortune. It has to be said that the British Empire companies' actions are inhumane. Isn't this killing the goose that lays the eggs? Therefore, in my opinion, although these British mining companies that have a local monopoly have recruited hundreds of thousands of people to mine, they have suppressed the labor force to the extreme, which is very dangerous and undesirable. Even rabbits will bite when they are forced into a corner, let alone living humans. So, to be honest, I think everything that happened in Chile has something to do with the British Empire. Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries finally said, I think that countries should not interfere too much in the internal political issues of Chile. I think since Britain supports the country's humanitarianism, it would be better for the British government to take out a few £100,000 from its huge finances to support Chile in improving the lives of the lower-class civilians. That would seem to be more morally superior. But perhaps as the current Chilean President Arturo Lozon said, Britain is the most unfriendly country in the world to its colonies. At present, Prime Minister Clayton seems to have difficulty persuading Britain to accomplish such a feat. Gerrit de Vries helped the new Chilean President Arturo Lozon to let the world know that this has risen to a struggle between Britain and the Netherlands. The countries that were originally led by Clayton to worry about the political buy-in burning to their own countries, especially the South American countries, have let down their guard and revealed a situation of being impartial. Obviously, the intervention of the Netherlands has helped the new Chilean government to resolve its diplomatic difficulties, which is greatly beneficial to Chile's integration into the international community. At the same time, the intervention of the Netherlands proved that the Netherlands was about to replace the original position of Britain in Chile, and the only remaining influence of Britain in the Pacific was about to be eliminated. In the future, the Netherlands will be even stronger in the Pacific region. On August 18, 1878, the Dutch government announced that it would provide 5 million Dutch guilders, £200,000, to support Chilean society to return to normal life. In addition to supporting 5 million Dutch guilders, the Dutch government also announced that it had received applications from the three top Dutch capital consortiums, the Dutch East India Company, the Dutch Far East Group, and the Dutch United Industrial Group, to start mining and smelting in Chile. The three companies are expected to invest more than 100 million Dutch guilders, £4 million, in the next 10 years. As soon as the news came out, it shocked the international community. You should know that many countries now have very little investment. Even for countries like Italy, the annual investment is only around this figure. Now the Netherlands has put the amount of Italian industrial investment into the small country of Chile. For all countries, this is a major and extremely dangerous gamble. However, Britain is very angry about this, because only the British Empire, which monopolizes the Chilean mining industry, supports it. The Netherlands wants to drive Britain out of the Chilean mining industry, and may even take over the British mining industry directly. But until now, no one from the British government and companies has said that they want to withdraw from the Chilean mining industry. Now such a large investment from the Netherlands has made the British government and British mining companies nervous. On August 20, 1878, the Chilean government of Arturo Lozán announced the abolition of all mining and smelting rights of British companies in Chile. Because of the large number of unequal treaties between the previous government and Britain, the new Chilean government did not recognize the validity of the treaties between Britain and the previous government, so the new government decided to abolish all contracts signed with the British government and companies. The Arturo Lozán government also announced the opening of the country's mining industry to the Netherlands and other countries, and welcomed the latest move of the Dutch government. Chapter 657 Eastern Pacific. 1878, the sixth day of the change in Chile, the overthrown former government President Mascaeno was rescued from the Santiago prison by his confidants and fled to Puerto Montt in the south. This naturally made Arturo Lozán of Chile very angry, so he sent the new Chilean government army to Puerto Montt in the south to hunt him down. However, at this time, because Puerto Montt was Mascaeno's hometown, many people there supported Mascaeno very much, so it was difficult for the hunting army from Santiago to enter Puerto Montt. The two sides formed a confrontation there. On August 23, 1878, the British Navy suddenly appeared in Puerto Montt in southern Chile and stationed in the Puerto Montt military port. At this time, Arturo Lozán obviously thought of the outcome of the development of the matter, that is, Britain finally fought back and directly mobilized the army. The sudden intervention of the British Empire made Arturo Lozán, who was in Santiago, very panicked, so he urgently asked the Netherlands for help. 2 days later, on August 25, 1878, the Dutch government received the news from Chile, which immediately made the Netherlands realize that this was a crisis as well as an opportunity. So Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries convened an emergency meeting and hurriedly reported to William IV. The British Navy crossed the Atlantic Ocean from the South African fleet and passed through the Strait of Magellan to Puerto Montt, Chile. That is to say, it took about 10 days from the time the coup broke out in Chile. But the time when the British Navy appeared now proves that Britain has been rushing to Chile at full speed from the very beginning. William IV said seriously, this proves the reason why the British government did not make concessions in Chile. Did Chile explain how many British warships were dispatched? Gerrit de Vries replied, including the Thor ironclad ship and other sailing battleships, a total of 9 British naval warships were dispatched. William IV's eyes flashed, and he said fiercely, since Britain wants to play, let's play big. Gerrit de Vries asked, what does your majesty mean? William IV ordered, Britain is testing us to see if we dare to send warships to Chile in the face of their unexpected dispatch of warships. Since they have provoked us like this, why should we let them down? Gerrit de Vries was shocked and looked at William IV. William IV said, it's time for the Netherlands to have a narrow road with Britain and the location should be South America. The navy of the British Empire actually appeared in Chile, where a coup had just occurred, on August 23, 1878. This immediately changed the color of everyone's eyes that mocked Britain for being driven away not long ago. Some time ago, the new Chilean government introduced policies to support Dutch companies to settle in Chile. It is very obvious that it will replace Britain. Many people think that Chile will announce these already known information in the coming time. However, as the British warship docked in Puerto Montt in central and southern Chile on August 23, everyone found that Arturo Lozán, the new controller of Chile, had unexpectedly chosen to retreat. Yes, from August 13 to August 26, 1878, it has been almost half a month, and there is still no news from the new government, which immediately disappointed those who like to watch the excitement. This includes people from many European countries such as the German Empire and France, as well as citizens of many countries in North and South America. Obviously, facing the powerful Britain, Arturo Lozán of Chile did not dare to immediately issue a policy to drive away British merchants. German Empire, Berlin. Bismarck said to his subordinates, "This is reasonable. Britain is unwilling to suffer losses. If London does not stop the rebellion of Chile, more Chiles will appear in the future." At present, Britain also has influence on the Confederate States of America, Belgium, the Ottoman Empire, Portugal, Mexico, etc. in the south of North America. Even Brazil relies on the support of Britain. If Britain retreats, it will definitely make these countries have illusions, and the consequences will be very serious for Britain. This is what Claxton and Queen Victoria have to do. Then, Prime Minister, facing the birth of a pro-Dutch regime, it seems to be suppressed now. How will the Netherlands respond? Bismarck took a deep breath and said, "The Netherlands is also a difficult person to deal with. Based on my understanding of William IV, he is not far from suffering losses. But in that case, the Netherlands will face the strong navy of the British Empire. You must know that the navy of the British Empire is the best in the world. Do the Netherlands really dare to do this?" Bismarck shook his head and said, "Alice, the Netherlands has grown up now. It is no longer the Netherlands that had to act timid in the face of Britain. The Netherlands has passed the incubation period, and now is the time when it needs an opportunity to show its strength. Wait, we will be able to see this scene soon." In North America, President Stephen Douglas of the United States and Secretary of State Thomas A. Hendricks were also in talks on this matter, but their opinions were different. Mr. President, I think we should take this opportunity to show our friendship to Britain. For this, we can condemn what happened in Chile. We should not support the coup in Chile, because this is the constitution we uphold. My Excellency Secretary of State, you seem to have forgotten one thing. Since President Monroe, we have not liked the European powers to develop their influence in the Americas. Now that Britain has openly sent warships to South America, this is definitely a challenge to President Monroe's Monroe Doctrine. President Stephen Douglas said dissatisfiedly, "Don't forget that Canada in our North and the Southern Confederacy of the United States, which supported the split of our United States, are threatening our security. Mexico seems to be willing to develop cooperation with Britain. The sovereignty of the Confederacy of the United States has been threatened by Britain. If the Secretary of State's diplomacy is carried out in this way, then it seems that the precautions against Britain are too light." Thomas A. Hendricks listened to Stephen Douglas's angry words and suddenly felt that he seemed to be pushed to the front of the storm again. Although he was also dissatisfied with Stephen Douglas's approach, he could not attack him as casually as he did. Because Stephen Douglas is the President of the United States, and he is just the Secretary of State appointed by the President. The two have their own thoughts, but they have not really fought fiercely. Among the 7 most powerful financial groups in the United States, the largest financial group is the Randy Financial Group. The helmsman of this family is Randy Blash, a staunch Republican supporter and the former Secretary of State of the government, who is of Dutch descent. The Dutch Boston Financial Group supports the Democratic Party, and the Citi Financial Group also comes from the Dutch descent, but it bets on both sides and does not choose between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, but it supports both the Dutch descent. In addition to these 3 financial groups, the United States has 4 major financial groups. The Morgan Financial Group and the Mellon Financial Group controlled by the British, the Rockefeller Financial Group controlled by the Germans, and the DuPont Financial Group controlled by the French. The American Financial Group is the biggest source of influence on government decision-making. Although the Dutch-American Randy Group, Citigroup and Boston Group are very powerful and firmly occupy the top 3 in the United States of America, the other groups behind them should not be underestimated. Especially the British Morgan and Mellon consortiums, which rose rapidly. Because of this, Stephen Douglas chose to support Thomas A. Hendricks in the election to become the Secretary of State who led the diplomacy of the United States of America after he was elected in order to get the support of the British. This is the helplessness brought by political compromise. The Dutch consortium is powerful, but it is also betting on many sides. Therefore, the support of the British consortium is also very important. Not only did he agree to the Morgan and Mellon consortiums at the beginning, but even the DuPont and Rockefeller consortiums once supported him and proposed the positions they would like to see when forming a government in the future. Among them, the ambassador to Germany fell into the hands of the Rockefeller family, and the ambassador to France also successfully fell into the hands of the French DuPont consortium. So facing Thomas A. Hendricks, who was supported by the Mellon and Morgan consortiums, Stephen Douglas did not further condemn him. In the final analysis, the two are still in a state of cooperation, but there are some different diplomatic directions. Besides, the other party is also quite cooperative. With the support of the Rothschild family, the Rockefeller family, the Morgan family and the Mellon family are currently growing rapidly, and have already threatened the status of the second consortium, the Citibank consortium, and the third consortium, the Boston consortium. At this time, Stephen Douglas knew that he could not offend these parties, otherwise, his government might become a sloppy government and even face downfall. When Stephen Douglas thought so, Thomas A. Hendricks could not help but regret that his tone was too strong just now. Stephen Douglas in front of him was a famous tyrant in the United States. He had directly verbally attacked the incumbent President Lincoln when he disagreed with him. Stephen Douglas even launched several impeachments against former President Andrew Johnson. Although he did not succeed in getting Andrew Johnson to step down, he also became famous because of this. Facing such a king, his actions just now seemed to easily anger the Holy Face. If that happened, there would be no good results. Thinking of this, he suddenly regretted it. However, thinking of the intentions of the forces behind him, Thomas A. Hendricks still said with a stiff upper lip, "But, at present, the British have stationed their navy in southern Chile. Chile seems to have been controlled by the British. The overall situation has been determined. If we do not make some diplomatic gestures, many of our investments in Chile may face uncertainty. You know, although our investment in Chile is not as much as Argentina, $85 million US, 17 million British pounds, and Brazil, $45 million US, 9 million British pounds, the current investment stock is more than 15 million US, 3 million British pounds." Stephen Douglas waved his hand to stop Thomas A. Hendricks. He pulled out a secret report from his desk and handed it to Thomas A. Hendricks. Thomas A. Hendricks took it in confusion, but when he looked up, his face changed drastically. It said, on August 27, 1878, the Dutch Far East Fleet had sailed east from New Zealand. Chapter 658, Abnormal Argentina. The New Zealand fleet of the Kingdom of the Netherlands set out from Wellington, New Zealand on August 27, and arrived at the Chatham Islands east of New Zealand one day later, the Miratori Islands on the 4th, the Easter Island on the 7th, and the Juan Fernandez Islands on the 9th. On September 8, 12 days later, the New Zealand fleet of the Kingdom of the Netherlands finally arrived in Santiago, Chile after a long journey. Including the steam battleships New Zealand, New South Wales, and sailing battleships, etc., they arrived one after another. Intelligence personnel from various countries in Chile unexpectedly discovered that this time the total number of Dutch warships exceeded 16 and arrived in Chile, concentrating many main forces of the Dutch Navy. Chile, which has the support of the Dutch fleet, if calculated by tonnage, suddenly jumped into the top 15 navies in the world. If calculated by the standard vitality of the warships, it would at least be in the top 10, comparable to the combat power of the Italian Navy. What is curious is that the British Navy actually hid in Puerto Montt and did not move during this period, which is puzzling. However, as the Dutch fleet entered Santiago, Britain actually dispatched, yes, to go directly north. During this period, President Mascherano also fought back from land with the support of Britain. At present, the Southern Army led by President Mascherano has entered the river region from Puerto Montt to the north, captured the local capital of Valdivia, and further threatened the Araucanio region. With the arrival of the Dutch fleet, Arturo Luzon, who was originally retreating, also fought back on September 10, 1878, so the two sides launched a gun battle on land with a total of about 5,000 people. No way, who said that the population of Chile is only 800,000? Both sides suffered losses. The North held on to Zamco in the Araucanio region, while the Southern Army captured Roncache in the Araucanio region, completely stood firm, and consolidated its rule in the river region. At the same time, The British and Dutch navies also confronted each other overseas in the river region and the Araucanian region. Neither side fired a single shell, but the silent sea made both sides feel that the storm before dawn seemed to be intensifying. The international community also understood that the reason why Britain had not taken action before was to wait for the arrival of the Dutch warships. Chile's long and narrow geographical location along the coast meant that the country was absolutely defenseless against attacks from the sea. This was the case when Chile faced the British strong ships and cannons. Now, if Britain does not deal with the Netherlands, then even if a pro-British government comes to power in the future, it will still face the Dutch navy. Therefore, Britain supported Chile's Mascayano to just stick to the south and wait for the competition with the Netherlands before going north to retake Santiago. This was a clear approach. Otherwise, even if Chile was taken, as long as Britain was defeated by the Netherlands, Chile would be taken away in a minute. It was precisely because of this understanding. So everyone was closely watching the news about the confrontation between the Netherlands and Britain at sea. "Your Majesty, will Britain launch a surprise attack on us?" Prime Minister Jarrett looked at William IV worriedly. Originally, he thought that the decisive confrontation between Britain and the Netherlands in the Strait of Malacca was the most important threat that the Netherlands should face, but now the battlefield has suddenly moved to South America, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. Jarrett was still full of worries in the face of such a change. In this regard, the other party was still far inferior to Thorbecke. William IV said secretly. However, as the king of the Western world, he must adapt to this normality. After all, the Prime Minister's term of office is 4 years. Even if he is re-elected for 8 years, he is always just a transitional figure for the king. Moreover, although William IV can make a certain influence on the candidates of the general election with the power in his hands, he still cannot completely control that every candidate is his favorite. Therefore, the survival of the fittest, when facing different elected candidates, it is fundamental to have a correct attitude. Falling out and fighting with the current Prime Minister will not happen to William IV at present. After all, his strength is still formidable. It's hard to say, but it seems that Britain is not ready to give up Chile too easily, but this is also the style of our Whig party that we have always understood. Seeing Jarrett's confusion, William IV smiled and said, "The Whig party has always been famous in British politics for balancing other countries through negotiations. What people are most familiar with is naturally the offshore balancing technique, so there is no reason for Clayton, as the heir of Viscount Palmerston, not to implement this approach. But your worries are reasonable. After all, the military has always been in the hands of Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria has always been hard to figure out her thoughts. Women's thoughts are unpredictable, and a woman who has been the king of a big country for 40 years has a lot of different thoughts, so we need to pay attention. Currently, all countries are watching us, so if we make mistakes in Chile, it will definitely be a huge loss to our Dutch national prestige. This time in Chile, we can't afford to make any mistakes." William IV said this, staring at Jarrett, and said, "According to the previous plan, arrange our submarine force in Lima, Peru to secretly go south. This time, I want to make the British Empire suffer a big loss." Greet's heart skipped a beat when he heard this, and his mouth moved. However, knowing that things could not be reversed at this point, he finally accepted the order firmly and said, "Yes." Watching Greet leave his king's office and close the door, William IV walked to a password box, opened it, and took out a document from it. On it was a name. Facing this name, William IV hesitated for a while, and finally picked up the pen next to him, drew a circle, and then wrote the word exposure. Sarmiento, Argentine ambassador to the Netherlands from 1858 to 1864, Argentine Minister of Finance from 1865 to 1870, and Argentine Minister of the Interior from 1870 to 1875. 1875 to 1878, Vice President of Argentina. William IV murmured, "Chile has now let Arturo Lozán come to power. As long as we keep our footing and drive the British away, we can almost let the Netherlands stand firm there and make Chile the sphere of influence of the Netherlands. The current Argentine president matter is too strong. This person has been my ally since 1858. Now 20 years have passed. As he gets older, he has become smooth, timid, and afraid of death. Facing the Netherlands on the Chilean issue, Argentina has not expressed any opinion so far, which has already explained something. In this case, don't blame me. Argentina is currently the leader of the Netherlands' allies in South America. If it does not become a model of friendship with the Netherlands, there is no need for it to exist. Similarly, there is no need for the old guy mitre to sit above the president. After speaking, William IV picked up the pen and wrote directly next to Sarmiento. On October 1, 1878, Sarmiento became the president of Argentina. Chapter 659, The Four Dutch Fleets. The Dutch Navy Department is the highest leadership department of the Dutch Navy. The Minister of the Navy is a civilian and is under the Naval Operations Department. The Minister of the Navy is an admiral and is the highest military command organization of the Navy. Currently, the Dutch Navy Department has 4 fleets under its jurisdiction. The Pacific Fleet is headquartered in Brisbane, Queensland Province, east of the Australian continent. The fleet commander has the rank of admiral. The Pacific Fleet has 5 squadrons under its jurisdiction, including the Hawaiian Fleet, Honolulu, also known as Honolulu, the New Zealand Fleet, Wellington, the Alaska Fleet, Anchorage, and the New Guinea Fleet, Manokwari. The squadron commander has the rank of lieutenant general. The Atlantic Fleet is headquartered in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and has the Netherlands European Fleet, Amsterdam, as well as 2 squadrons, the Suriname Squadron, Paramaribo, and the Congo Squadron, Cabinda. The Indian Ocean Fleet is headquartered in Perth, the capital of Western Australia in the west of the Australian continent. It has the Madagascar Squadron, Toa Messina, the Tanzanian Squadron, Dar es Salaam, and the Dutch East Indies Fleet, Jakarta. In addition, there is the Australian Native Fleet, headquartered in Port Adelaide, South Australia, guarding the homeland and the other 3 fleets. The New Zealand Squadron Command has a 4-star admiral, a 3-star Major General Deputy Commander and Chief of Staff, and 5 Chiefs of Staff in charge of operations, intelligence, command and control, logistics, and working, as well as direct units such as the Command Center and Intelligence Center. Now the total strength of the New Zealand fleet has reached 28,000, with more than 30 surface ships and more than 20 submarines. Because the New Zealand fleet needs to guard the homeland, its strength is comparable to that of the Dutch East Indies Fleet, but it exceeds the Dutch East Indies Fleet in terms of submarine strength. The current commander of the New Zealand Fleet is Vice Admiral Braga. In 1863, Vice Admiral Braga became a colonel stationed in Congo by the Netherlands. In 1870, he became the deputy commander of the Congo Squadron in Africa. In 1875, he was transferred to the New Zealand Fleet and became the commander of the fleet, and was promoted to Vice Admiral. This time, almost half of the New Zealand Fleet's ships went to Chile in the Eastern Pacific to compete with Britain. This can be said to be the largest scale of the Netherlands in nearly 100 years. Vice Admiral Braga sent 2 major generals, David Porter, Deputy Commander and Chief of Staff of the Fleet Command, and Stephen Decatur, Chief of Staff, to lead the team. James Barron, Captain of the steam battleship New Zealand, William Bainbridge, Captain of the flagship battleship Wellington, and Jesse Elliott, Colonel of the Marine New Zealand Fleet Division, participated. On September 11, 1878, in a valley south of Concepcion, the capital of the Biobío district of Chile, Rogers and Porter stood aside, Bainbridge and Elliott were discussing, Barron was nervously polishing his glasses, and Decatur was absent-mindedly playing with his pistol. The admirals of the New Zealand Fleet did not come here for sightseeing or picnics, but to duel or watch duels. This was near the front line of the battlefield between the northern and southern forces of Chile. Everyone, before we came here, it has been made very clear that we came here to kill the British fleet, or to defeat them. I think Britain also came for this purpose. The proxy war was opened on the Chilean land, and we have been fighting a sea battle along the coast of Chile. David Porter, Deputy Commander and Chief of Staff of the New Zealand Fleet Command and the person in charge of this operation, said loudly, "As long as we defeat the opponent this time, the reputation of the Dutch Navy can be rectified. You will become the most famous and brave naval figures in the Netherlands and even the world, because you have killed the strongest naval opponent in the world for hundreds of years. If you lose, the British Navy will continue to be arrogant and do whatever it wants in major seas around the world, and the development of the Dutch Navy over the years will be beaten back to its original form, and continue to bow its head and stay away from the opponent's ships when facing the British Navy in the future. Faced with such a result, are you willing? No. Faced with such a thing that damages the dignity of the Netherlands, are you willing to let it happen? No. Are you willing to let the Netherlands lose everything they have gained? No. Okay, very good. David Porter encouraged righteously, In this case, let us show your best skills and best combat effectiveness in the next fight with the British and teach them a good lesson at the same time. In Puerto Montt in southern Chile, the British fleet is currently carrying out almost the same scene, but the British side is mainly to maintain the hegemony of the British Navy in the world, unlike the Netherlands, which is for the sake of gaining power. The ships of the British Navy fleet this time are from the South African fleet, and the commander is Nons, a native British aristocrat. He was previously the Chief of Staff of the Channel Fleet in the English Channel. Because of his rich combat experience and the struggle between the Netherlands and Britain in the Far East, the British military decided to drop him into the South African fleet, a fleet close to the front line, in order to use him to assist the Indian fleet and prevent accidents. As a war maniac, he was very dissatisfied with not being transferred to the Indian fleet. However, he did not expect that the situation would change. At least that was what he thought. The coup in Chile happened before the war in the Strait of Malacca. He, the deputy commander of the South African fleet, was the first to be ordered to Chile to fight the Dutch first. This was like pie in the sky for him. So he was very much looking forward to the war with the Netherlands this time. Of course, as arrogant as he was, he actually did not think about losing the war, because during the period of the Channel Fleet in the English Channel, he was not afraid of the French fleet, the second largest fleet in the world at that time. Sometimes he even provocatively cruised along the French coast. The feeling at that time made him feel extremely good. Now facing the Netherlands, which has had very few naval wars in the past 100 years, and has been defeated by them for more than 100 years, will Nons be afraid? To him, being afraid of the Dutch fleet is a joke. Everyone, according to the intelligence we just obtained, the Dutch fleet is currently stationed in San Diego, which is only half a day's sailing away from us. What do you think? Sir Nons, we have 9 naval warships participating this time, and the Dutch are said to have 15. We are only 2/3 of theirs. Facing this battle with a huge disparity, I am worried that we will be besieged with a 3-to-2 ratio. Nons looked over and saw that the man was White, the Chief of Staff of the South African fleet. This man has always been famous for his caution and has never been on good terms with Nons. It can be said that the difference in personality has led to different ways of doing things. Nons felt annoyed with this person. However, in an emergency, he concealed it. Chief of Staff White is right to be worried, but what you don't know is that we have no fewer ships than the other side, and we should have more ships. Nons' words made White and others look at him. Chapter 660 Royal Scandal. In the southern Atlantic Ocean, if someone looks down from a high altitude, they can see a long wave of water with a white ribbon, stretching longer and longer from east to west. Looking closely at a low altitude, you can find that the seawater ribbon formed by this wave is actually caused by a fleet sailing from east to west. The unified Union Jack is hung on it. Obviously, this is the surface ship of the British Empire, the strongest navy in the world. If someone counts it again, they will find that there are as many as 10 ships, including even the Cape Town ironclad ship, and there are 2 heavy gunboats in it. These are the backbone ships of the British Navy, and now they are rushing to the west. The Cape Town ironclad cruiser usually does not leave the South African fleet, but this time it was dispatched, and it also brought 9 warships with it, which shows that the matter is not small. If someone from the Dutch military saw this scene, they would definitely be terrified, because the direction of this fleet's sailing did not seem to be the previous direction of either returning to the British Isles to the northwest to the northern Atlantic, or to India through the Mozambique Channel and then the northern Indian Ocean. This time, the direction of the voyage was to the west at the same latitude. Anyone with a little geographical awareness knows that this means either losing Argentina in South America or going to Chile. Now that the Netherlands and Britain are wrestling for influence in Chile, the answer is already clear. This fleet of 10 British warships with a ME flag is mainly going to Chile, and Chile currently has 9 warships in front. This time, 10 more warships were dispatched, and no one noticed, which made it really mysterious. Needless to say, this is obviously a secret operation of the United Kingdom. Buckingham Palace. Sitting next to Queen Victoria is the second daughter, Princess Alice, currently the Duchess of Argyll, the United Kingdom. Originally, the Netherlands had 15 warships and the UK had 9. If we add the 10 we sent not long ago, we can completely suppress the 15 ships sent by the Netherlands. Princess Alice was born in 1843 and is now 35 years old. However, due to proper maintenance, the charm is still so plump, and the charm of a young woman is fully displayed. But it is also true that Princess Alice has given birth to a total of 5 children in the past 12 years since she married the Duke of Argyll in 1866. She can give birth to one every 2.5 years, which is also a happy life. For this reason, Queen Victoria showed a kind smile on her face. Princess Alice is her favorite daughter after marrying Princess Victoria, the eldest daughter of the former Prussian Empire and now the German Empire. The latter's personality is very similar to her husband Prince Albert, so she loves Princess Alice even more. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but think of Princess Louise, who married to Greece and became the crown princess, and Princess Helena, who married to Sweden and became the princess of Prince George, the second son of Christian IX. Especially Princess Louise, thinking of her in Greece, Queen Victoria could not help but feel worried. But she suppressed it and said, "Yes, it seems that we have the upper hand after the 10 warships we secretly sent arrived in Chile. However, you know, William IV, this man is very cunning. I don't know if the other party will notice what we can do and do the same as us." He couldn't help but worry. The 38-year-old William IV is currently in his prime. Compared with the 60-year-old Queen Victoria, William IV, who has entered middle age, is absolutely incomparable in energy. What's more, in the previous many British-Dutch competitions, Britain seemed to have been always pinned down, resulting in repeated suppression. This made Britain at a disadvantage. So in the face of the renewed collision between the two countries, Queen Victoria and Clayton were much more cautious. They first sent out 9 warships to confuse the other side. Even if they couldn't confuse the other side, they could make the other side send out a formation with little advantage after estimation, and then Britain secretly sent out 10 more warships to participate in the battle. The Netherlands will definitely be successfully deceived by the British. Queen Victoria thought of this and couldn't help but feel a little relaxed. However, she was relaxed, but her second daughter, Princess Alice, was not going to let her go. Princess Alice hesitated for a while, then gritted her teeth and said, "Mother, according to rumors, Louise." Queen Victoria frowned and wanted to stop the other party from continuing, but in the end, she held back. Seeing this, Princess Alice, who knew how to read people's expressions, knew that she could finish her words. There is a rumor among the nobles in London, England, that Prince Frederick of Greece seems to have fallen off his horse in his early years, so he can't have children. It is said that this happened in 1870 when Crown Prince Frederick was still with William III in the Duchy of Luxembourg. He was only 21 years old that year, and it was not long before he got married. But now Louise has given birth to 2 princes and princesses for him in 1873 and 1877. This rumor is getting more and more fierce. Mother, I think there is no such thing as a smoke without fire in this world, but this is too outrageous. At last, Princess Alice showed a ruthless expression on her face, and said sternly, "Things that destroy the reputation of our British royal family should definitely be suppressed. Mother, I think we should stop this rumor from spreading, otherwise it will be very detrimental to the image of our British royal family." After saying it all at once, seeing that Queen Victoria still had a blank expression on her face, Princess Alice said, "Louise's innocence cannot be slandered, but what if she really did it?" Alice was shocked when she heard this. She immediately looked up at Queen Victoria and looked at her in shock. What if Louise really did what the rumor said? This was something she had never thought about. As a member of the British royal family, Princess Alice has always been a model of European royal family members who follow the rules. She has an elegant temperament, a gentle temperament, but she is also noble and relaxed. She can be said to show the charm of European noble ladies. She has become the pride of the British royal family. Princess Louise is the smartest princess in the British royal family, and even her sisters Princess Alice and Princess Victoria have to admit this. There are many legends about her in the UK. Therefore, the princesses born by the Queen are praised for being smart and beautiful. But now it is rumored in the UK that Princess Louise, who married to Athens, Greece, was unfaithful to Crown Prince Frederick, and the reason was because Crown Prince Frederick had problems? So if it is true, who are the princes and princesses born to Princess Louise? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 661, The 5 South American Nations Coalition. After the Netherlands' intentional or unintentional grain export blockade against Britain in recent years, coupled with the 17-year embargo on grain from the Confederate States of America since the Civil War in 1861, the four major markets that Britain relied on for imports were the Russian Empire and Argentina in South America. In 1876 to 1878, Britain's domestic grain production was poor for 3 consecutive years, and food prices in Britain continued to rise. The British people could not afford it and asked the British Empire to ease relations with the Netherlands, the second largest grain exporter after Argentina and before the Confederate States of America and Tsarist Russia, and restore normal trade relations with the Netherlands, or at least restore relations with the Confederate States of America. The Whig Party, to which Clayton belongs, has always been a supporter of free trade and has always hoped to resolve relations with the United States through diplomatic means to avoid being threatened by others in the grain import market. You must know that the Russian Empire, Argentina, and the United States are all real strategic allies of the Netherlands. Together with the Netherlands, they constitute the 4 major grain exporting countries with the greatest ability to monopolize the world's grain market. For many countries, these 4 countries cannot be offended. So look at Argentina, which has formed the most powerful army in South America by selling grain, and even has an advantage over Brazil. The Russian Empire sells grain to Europe every year, so the Russian Empire has huge foreign exchange to import more weapons and arm itself. Britain also faces the threat of monopolizing grain from these 4 countries. It just happens that Canada and the British Isles are facing a grain harvest shortage, so the Clayton government wants to ease relations with the United States to deal with the Netherlands with all its strength. This is a consensus reached by the 2 British parties. But Claxton obviously missed the attitude of the United States of America. On September 13, 1878, the British ambassador to the United States returned to London and brought the President of the United States of America, Stephen Douglas, who rejected Britain's attempt to lift the grain export to Britain this year. Stephen Douglas even proposed that Britain abandon its support for the Confederate States of America in the south of the United States and agree to the unification of the North and the South before the United States of America would lift the grain ban. The Claxton government was naturally unwilling to do so. He even regarded it as an ultimatum from the United States of America to support the Netherlands in the dispute between the Netherlands and Britain, in order to improve the negotiation conditions with Britain. Faced with Stephen Douglas's lion's mouth, he naturally found it difficult to satisfy. So, after leaving behind the Russian Empire, which Britain had always balanced, he placed the solution to Britain's food crisis on Argentina. So President Mitre, who has been in power in the Argentine government for 17 years, began to receive guests from Britain in an endless stream, which attracted a lot of attention internationally. At the same time, many people in the Netherlands were very dissatisfied with Britain's practice of poaching the Dutch allies, and the various disputes between the 2 countries in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean recently caused a high degree of anti-British effect in the Netherlands. Even more, many people thought that Britain's successive overtures to the United States of America and Argentina were attempts to isolate the Netherlands. So the strong Liberal Party in the Netherlands began to ask the Dutch Parliament to declare war on Britain, at least on the battlefield in Chile in South America. Before that, the Netherlands had not officially declared war on the outside world for 15 years, except for the passive declaration of war on Portugal's invasion of the Dutch colony of Congo in Africa in 1863. This is a legal procedure, submitted by the Prime Minister to the Parliament, and officially declared war on the outside world. Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries suggested directly declaring war on the British Army in Chile, because that was the battlefield where the 2 countries tested each other, and the battlefield was controlled within a certain range. But Gerrit de Vries's suggestion was rejected by the Christian Party. The Christian Party felt that the battlefield had already begun and was definitely not limited to Chile, so they believed that a full-scale war should be declared on Britain. The leader of the Christian Party, Theo van Linden, suggested that the Dutch Parliament should declare a full-scale war. As expected of a Dutch naval commander, he was quite hawkish. The main members of the Socialist Party came from immigrants, so when faced with a war, many of these immigrants did not support it. This was a wise move to protect themselves. Therefore, the party leader Jules Darneton gathered all the socialist parties in the parliament and expressed a preference for peace. During the discussion in the House of Representatives, lower house, of the Dutch parliament at the request of Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries, Jules Darneton stood up first to object. "You are crazy to declare war on Britain when you don't have enough money, enough troops, and enough navy to completely suppress Britain. But his statement was directly refuted. Gerrit de Vries retorted, "Nothing in this world is perfect, so we can't sit and wait for death on the issue of Britain, but we should take the initiative." So the two had a fierce confrontation. As an ally of the Socialist Party, the Christian Party also intervened from time to time to accuse the Liberal Party, but it also played a role in easing the situation. In the end, the young people who represented the tough stance on foreign affairs were happy to see that the Congress still passed the Christian Party's proposal to declare war on Britain in an all-round way. William IV, who knew the news, couldn't help but think that the young Dutch people represented by the War Eagle had not experienced the Napoleonic Wars 60 or 70 years ago. Many of them gained arrogant confidence from the victory in the Dutch-Portuguese War. They had not seen the thundering means of the British Royal Navy to crush the Spanish Navy from the sea, and had never seen the suppression of France at sea, so this time the war faction had the upper hand. In the Dutch Parliament, the Liberals have always been trade-oriented, while the Christian Party is a hardliner. In addition, the newly established Socialist Party has become the third largest force, and the party is playing both sides and grabbing the middle votes. Although the Dutch political arena seems chaotic at this time, it has become an isosceles triangle compared to the period of the Three Kingdoms, and has entered a stable period. So now is the time when William IV is most assured of the Dutch political arena. It is not bad to launch a tentative challenge to Britain at this time. The Netherlands wants to become a world power, and the term peaceful rise that is familiar to later generations is a joke in this era. There is only one way for the newly rising great power to challenge the country that blocks the route in front, and that is to move the other party away and seize the position. It is extremely difficult for the Netherlands to defeat Britain at this time. The Netherlands alone has no chance to do so in the Atlantic Ocean, and the same is true for the Mediterranean. The Netherlands currently has the upper hand in the Indian Ocean, and the Netherlands can crush Britain in the Pacific direction. In fact, Britain has almost no territory in the Pacific at present, only the Malayan Islands and a port town in the south of the northern Far East. So William IV chose to launch a regional local war against Britain in the Pacific this time, but it is a war with the lowest cost and the highest benefit. William IV acquiesced, and the Dutch political policy was passed more happily. Therefore, on September 14, 1878, the Dutch Parliament passed Gerrit de Vries's proposal, and after adding to it, on September 16, 1878, it officially announced its strong dissatisfaction with Britain's infringement of the Netherlands' rights and interests in the Strait of Malacca in the Far East. At the same time, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs also announced that it would support the new government of Arturo Lozán in Chile and oppose Britain's interference in Chile's internal affairs. "We have sent a powerful naval fleet to Santiago to help defend against threats from the sea to the Arturo Lozán government. We are committed to supporting the Arturo Lozán government to change the brutal ruling style of the former government, Mascaano, and to support 1.8 million Chileans to live a better life. To this end, our Dutch cabinet government has signed an executive order to allow strong Dutch companies from all walks of life to go to Chile to promote the development of the local economy, benefit the local people, provide employment opportunities for the local people, and assist President Arturo Lozán in easing the confrontational atmosphere in Chile and calming the dissatisfaction of Chileans with the former government's poor management." On the same day, the Dutch Ministry of Defense also solemnly announced, "We will not abandon our allies in South America, so the Netherlands is ready to unite the four Pacific coastal countries of Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia and the landlocked country of Bolivia to form a five-nation land coalition led by the Netherlands, with a force of about 50,000 troops, to go to Chile to support the Arturo Lozán government and maintain peace and stability in the country." The Netherlands actually declared war on Britain without any warning, and it was really natural, as if there was no wind beforehand. The most surprising thing is that the Netherlands actually united four countries to form a five-nation coalition with the countries along the eastern Pacific coast, and the number of people reached 50,000, which is already a huge number. You must know that the total strength of Chile is only 100,000, and the former president of the South, Mascaano, occupies 30,000, while the new government has only 70,000, and it is a mixed new army. If these 50,000 five-nation coalition forces arrive in Chile, it will definitely change the local military strength. You must know that taking Argentina, the second most powerful country in South America, as an example, the population increased from 2.7 million in 1865 to 3.95 million in 1877, an increase of 46.3%, and there are still 4 points short of nearly half. Argentina, with a population of nearly 4 million, currently has only 150,000 conventional troops. The Russian 10,000 of the five-nation coalition is equivalent to one-third of the Argentine regular army. It also reached one-fifth of the 250,000 troops of Brazil, with a population of 8 million. So when the Netherlands announced the establishment of an international coalition of 5 countries, it not only attracted attention in Europe and was condemned in the UK, but also in South America. In addition to the other 4 countries, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay also expressed dissatisfaction with the expansion of the Netherlands' power in South America. However, Venezuela did not express any opinions, but everyone noticed one thing, that is, Argentina, the largest ally of the Netherlands in South America, although it did not express dissatisfaction like Brazil, Uruguay and Paraguay, also expressed concern. Anyone with a discerning eye knew that this was a signal that Argentina was also dissatisfied with the Netherlands' practice of forming a coalition with other South American countries behind their backs. Argentina's statement made the British Clayton's eyes light up at this time, so British diplomats went to Argentina more frequently, and the Argentine ambassador to the UK was summoned more frequently by the British Foreign Office. This news spread like wildfire from London to Europe and the world. Obviously, this is a counterattack by the UK, continuing to dig deep into the foundation of the Dutch Ally Circle. Chapter 662 The Inevitable War. As early as after learning that the Dutch Liberal Party was in Parliament, the British government ordered the Royal Navy to prepare for battle. Once the other side declared war, it was prepared to ban the sale of Dutch industrial products in the British market. However, the overseas sales of domestic industrial products in the UK were blocked, food in the country was getting worse, and the unemployment rate in London and other places had doubled in the past 2 years. The public became more and more excited, forming an anti-government movement, and even led to the assassination of Spencer, the Deputy Minister of the Navy of the British Cabinet Government, on the streets of London on September 18, 1878. The whole of Britain was shocked, and finally a full-scale arrest was launched, only to find out that the main culprit was an anti-war person. He did not want to see the British Navy start a war overseas, because his father and brother were both soldiers of the British Royal Navy, but they lost their lives in the American Civil War in which Britain participated, so he had a fear of war since then and tried to prevent the war from happening. However, the main culprit's wish was unfulfilled, and even had the opposite effect. British public opinion turned hawkish under the guidance of the Claxton government. On September 20, 1878, British Prime Minister Clayton formally asked Parliament to declare war on the Netherlands in London. 3 days later, the British House of Commons passed it by 613 to 37, with all Whig MPs and most Tory MPs voting in favour. In the British House of Lords, among the 650 Lords, although there was no overwhelming scene with the House of Commons, it was enough to pass the bill 530 to 120, of which 80 votes came from independent MPs, and another 40 votes came from the Tories, most of whom voted against the Whigs. At the same time, Britain decided to adopt a policy of appeasement towards the Russian Empire. Britain was ready to purchase large areas of grain from the Russian Empire and proposed maritime cooperation between Britain and Russia in the Baltic and North Atlantic Oceans. German Empire, Berlin. 54 years after the Anglo-Dutch Battle of Malacca in 1824, the Netherlands and Britain have finally entered a state of war again. Starting from Melbourne, King William IV of the Netherlands, Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries, and Chief of Staff Mark Rudd knew that the arrow was on the string and had to be fired. This war has reached an inevitable point. The British Empire needs a war against the Netherlands. Although they have been busy dealing with the rising German Empire and the Russian Empire, which has been recuperating in the north of Eurasia for many years, they lost the last war in the Balkan Peninsula a little unfairly. The British Empire has always dreamed of turning America into a colony again, and now it also dreams of taking back Australia, which was developed and prospered by the Netherlands, from the Netherlands to strengthen Britain itself. The Netherlands needs a war against Britain even more, because William IV and Gerrit de Vries know that without this war, the Netherlands cannot win the awe-inspiring status of a truly powerful country. With excitement on his old face, Kaiser Wilhelm I said, "Now that the Anglo-Dutch War is about to happen as we originally imagined, the German Empire should naturally not miss such a great opportunity. What do you think the Prime Minister's goal is? Your Majesty and I were lurking in Europe step by step. This has brought a peaceful atmosphere to Europe in the past 8 years. The economies and military of various countries are developing by leaps and bounds. In contrast, Britain, which was originally far ahead, is now being closely followed by us in the fields of science and technology and industry. If it were not for Britain's vast overseas territory of Canada, the fertile Indian subcontinent, and South Africa's metal minerals, we would have already surpassed each other in economic output. Bismarck said proudly, "Your Majesty, the reason why the Netherlands can rise rapidly is that it has a large area of territory in the Far East. Australia, the Dutch East Indies, New Guinea and the South Pacific Islands alone have more than 10.7 million square kilometers. The United Kingdom has 9.04 million square kilometers of Canada, except for British Columbia, where the Commonwealth of the United States occupied 940,000 square kilometers, 4.3 million square kilometers of the Indian subcontinent, divided into India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan in 1948, and 680,000 square kilometers of Myanmar. Together, they have a total of 14.02 million square kilometers. Note that the United Kingdom has not included the territories it ruled in Africa, and the Netherlands has not included its mainland, the Alaska Peninsula, Africa, South America, the Middle East, etc. The German Empire, in addition to its African colonies in Guyana, which was snatched from France in South America, only has 540,000 square kilometers of its mainland. Speaking of this, Bismarck happened to see William I's somewhat embarrassed old face, so he went with the flow and said, "The Russian Empire also has the largest territory on the Eurasian continent, and because of its excessive strategic depth, the Russian Empire's status as a powerful country has never been denied since the Vienna Conference in 1815 established its status as a great power. Even the previously ignored British colony, the Confederation of the United States, has risen up due to its huge territory and strong local resources. After losing nearly one-third of its territory, the Confederation of the United States in the South has become the world's fourth largest economy after the Netherlands, Britain, and the German Empire, surpassing the total of France and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It also ranks fourth in industry. Except for some shortcomings in the military, with a population of 30 million, the Confederation of the United States has become the country with the most potential for a great power after the Netherlands, surpassing Italy and Spain. The current powers are mainly Britain, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, France from north to south, and the Ottoman Empire, which is a half-powerful country. William I nodded his head when he heard this. Yes, Italy is a newly rising regional power in Europe, but Spain is a superpower in history. Even now, due to the division of the French Empire into North and South, Spain has become the most powerful country in southern Europe, and its war potential is even stronger than that of the Second French Empire controlled by Napoleon III. The United States of America can be ranked with Spain, and even surpasses Spain in economy and industry. It is shocking. The Kingdom of the Netherlands above it has become a place that can almost be compared with the German Empire in less than 20 years under the eyes of William I, which makes William I speechless. After all, he has gone through a lot of hardships and used all kinds of intrigues and tricks. The Kingdom of Prussia almost swallowed up the entire German Confederation to create the current German Empire. For this reason, he has also been criticized, and countries have developed a sense of distance from the German Empire. And what about the Netherlands? It seems that it has been smooth and steady all the way, and the transformation has been completed without any quarrels or commotions. It can be said to be a blockbuster. In comparison, it seems that the rise of the German Empire was too cumbersome. At this time, Bismarck was unaware of William I's self-pity, and he said shockingly, "With so many good examples in front of us, the German Empire naturally needs more fertile land, so our territorial expansion in Europe can be stopped next, but overseas, we can start." William I heard his heart skipping a beat, and asked with a smile pretending to be calm, "Where's the target?" Bismarck smiled faintly. "It is said that Paraguay used to rely on the French Empire, but now it has become weak and can no longer stand up straight in South America. Our German Empire is an expert in this area, so we can help them heal." William I asked in high spirits, "How to treat it?" "The German Empire has superb medical skills, so naturally they use the simplest method." Bismarck said confidently, "It is said that Paraguay has always been obsessed with Uruguay, which originally belonged to the same family, and Brazil and Argentina are also greedy for this. Previously, because of the expansion of Paraguay, Uruguay was established as a country under the compromise of Brazil and Argentina. Now that Uruguay's voice has become smaller in Paraguay, Brazil and Argentina have begun to compete for Uruguay again. This is a dispute between three countries. Your Majesty, I think that precisely, when facing the Netherlands, Britain is somewhat unable to deal with the competition between Brazil and Argentina. I think Britain will agree to our intervention in Uruguay. After all, the reason why Uruguay was independent from Paraguay in the past was also largely due to Britain, so Britain's influence is still not small. If we make up for Britain's influence and cooperate with France's former ally Paraguay, I think our chances of successfully intervening in southern South America are still relatively high. After listening to this, William I was silent for a while, and then walked to the side and looked at the simple global route map on the wall. This is a blurry map, but the routes and the geographical locations of large places are still relatively detailed. He turned his gaze to the southwest of South America, across the Atlantic Ocean in Europe, and found the location of Uruguay. He said, Uruguay's territory is too small. Even if we occupy it, our influence and benefits there will not be great. It is difficult to compare with the large areas of Britain and the Netherlands. Obviously, seeing the small map of Uruguay on the map, especially when compared with Argentina and Brazil next to it, it is even more pitifully small. William I immediately lost much interest in it. However, Bismarck said, Uruguay is small, but your Majesty has obviously forgotten what I said just now. We are here at the request of Paraguay. William I's eyes suddenly showed golden light. You mean, we will take care of Paraguay by the way? Bismarck nodded and replied, not only Paraguay, your Majesty, please look here, from 50 degrees south to northwest to Paraguay and then to Bolivia, this is the route of the Andes Mountains across South America. As long as we occupy these three countries, or even only Uruguay and Paraguay, then we control the channel of communication between Argentina and Brazil, and Argentina has fertile land on the side close to Paraguay and Uruguay, and even the capital Buenos Aires is next to it. The southern part of Brazil is sparsely populated. Even Paraguay, which had only 20,000 people at the beginning, occupied nearly 1/6 of the southern territory of Brazil, not to mention our soldiers of the German Empire. William I smiled and asked, so? Bismarck said firmly, so, your Majesty, in addition to the Anglo-Dutch-Chilean dispute in South America, it seems that with our involvement, war in the region will be inevitable. William I and Bismarck looked at each other and laughed. Although Britain and the Netherlands had already declared war, they did not know that a third party was ready to get involved. Chapter 663, The Squidget Incident. More than 100 years ago. 1878, the scandal of the royal family of the Kingdom of Greece expanded, and the news that Crown Princess Louise and Crown Prince Frederick were living separately was exposed in newspapers in various European countries. The source of the news was that Crown Prince Frederick was exposed to have beaten Princess Louise several times in August, so that the Crown Princess had to ask outside doctors for treatment. In order to restore his reputation, Crown Prince Frederick agreed to accept a joint interview with the Financial Times and the European Times on September 26, 1878. In the interview, he painfully expressed his remorse for domestic violence against Princess Louise, but it was not because he was inhumane as the media said before, but because his love affair with a married woman named Camilla in Greece caused Princess Louise's dissatisfaction. With his announcement, the two's long-term extramarital affair was made public, and immediately lost the support of the Greek people that he had been desperately trying to win back. It seems that at the same time, the Greek media also exposed the affair of Crown Princess Louise. The correspondence between her and a lover named William was made public. In the correspondence, this Dutch William, who is a Melbourne native, told Crown Princess Louise that he loved her and called her cute squid. The number of correspondences between the two reached 53 times, which aroused people's strong curiosity. What ability did this Melbourne William have to seduce Princess Louise, who was famous for her beautiful beauty in the UK, to be so infatuated? Because she was always called a cute squid in the letters, this incident was also called the Squidgate incident. So many newspapers immediately turned their attention from Crown Prince Frederick to Crown Princess Louise. It is said that William I was very angry about this, and he was troubled by the emotional changes between Crown Prince Frederick and the Crown Princess. At this time, Crown Princess Louise confirmed in an interview with the media that the correspondence records were true, but she denied that the relationship between the two was too close. On September 29, 1878, Princess Louise conducted an interview with a reporter from the European Times. She talked about the great pressure she faced and her depression and bulimia after giving birth to the second child of the Greek royal family, Princess Wilhelmina, In 1876, the first was Prince Carol, born in 1873. She said that she knew about the underground love affair between Crown Prince Frederick and the married woman Camilla, and that the marriage was too crowded with 3 people. At the same time, she also admitted that she had cheated, but that was a thing of the past. The Crown Prince and his wife both cheated, and after being widely publicized by the media, it caused an uproar among the Greek people. In order to reduce the impact, William III personally wrote a letter to urge Crown Prince Frederick and Princess Louise to calm down. At the same time, William III also strongly asked Crown Prince Frederick to cut off the underground love affair with Camilla. The storm seemed to have calmed down, but everyone understood that the hero and heroine of the storm, Crown Prince Frederick and Princess Louise, had a change in their marriage, and they were afraid that they would be strangers. I don't know if it was to cause an impact on the image of the Greek royal family due to the aftermath of their marriage. William II actually announced in the Greek royal palace that Prince Carol was canonized as the Duke of Sparta and Princess Wilhelmina as the Grand Duchess of Athens. William III was proving to the world the purity of the blood of the prince and princess and denying the claim that the two were not of royal blood. A storm was suspended. In the Greek royal palace, in the private room of Crown Prince Frederick. Bang, 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 the sound of ceramic fragments falling all over the floor sounded, and everyone outside the palace was terrified, because in recent years, as the Crown Prince's temper became more and more strange, his personality became more and more perverse. In the past 3 years alone, more than 20 of the Crown Prince's servants have been fired. They naturally understand the storm caused by the media outside, and they know more about the things inside. Because of this understanding, they know more about the source of Crown Prince Frederick's anger. They all showed sympathy for the Crown Prince. The face of Crown Prince Frederick in the room was slightly distorted. He hated a person who exposed his secret, but at the same time, he was even more angry about Princess Louise's ruthless dissatisfaction with him being exposed in front of the media. Now, he was even more terrified about his father William II canonizing Prince Carol as the Duke of Sparta. Those two bastards were actually recognized, Crown Prince Frederick said angrily. Father knew that Louise's lover was Hendrik, William IV, and Carol and Wilhelmina were not mine but Hendrik's children, but he still openly announced Carol as the Grand Duke of Sparta. Is this a disguised pressure on me to stop? Crown Prince Frederick was very terrified. Because although he was the Crown Prince of Greece, all European royal families knew that in history, all Greek crown princes would inevitably become the Duke of Sparta, which was one of the symbols of inheriting the Greek throne. Now, he is the Crown Prince, and Prince Carol is the Duke of Sparta. If Carol was his own blood, it would not matter, but he is not. Judging from what his father William II meant, it seems that he meant more than just the third in line of succession. There is also the Grand Duchess of Athens, Wilhelmina. The Grand Duke of Athens is the fourth in line of succession to the throne. Well, it seems that his father William II is determined to make Hendrik's bloodline the bloodline of the Greek royal family. I imagine that William IV, who is far away in Melbourne, should be very proud at this time. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Suddenly, many valuable antiques become the objects of his venting. At the same time, not far from here, Crown Princess Louise is calmly teaching the 5-year-old Prince Carol and the 2-year-old Princess Wilhelmina. In another palace of the couple, William II looked at the information in his hand with a complicated look. The person who made public the relationship between Princess Louise and William. The intelligence shows that it is his third son, Crown Prince Frederick, and the inhumane thing about exposing the third son, Crown Prince Frederick, is the power of people in Greece who are dissatisfied with the royal family. As for those who defend Princess Louise, they are from Britain and the Netherlands. Look at the direction of the international media now. I know that this is the reason why the storm can calm down so quickly. At the same time, William II was also very troubled by this. Frederick was indeed diagnosed in his early years, and his body might be very difficult to have children, which was also the reason why the couple was worried at the beginning. However, before the marriage, they did not tell the truth to Queen Victoria of England, so it is very embarrassing now. By mistake, what surprised William II was that Princess Louise had an underground love affair with the eldest son Hendrik, and with the investigation, it was discovered that Frederick's child was Hendrik's. He knew clearly that Princess Louise and Hendrik, William IV, had met less than 20 times in total. When did they develop feelings? After the investigation, it was discovered that the two met each other when William IV, Hendrik, held the European Belief Conference in 1863. After that, the correspondence became a portrayal of the intimacy between the two. In other words, Crown Prince Frederick married a British princess who liked his eldest son Hendrik. William I held his forehead with a headache. Is this the so-called rekindled love? After finding out the whole story, he decisively calmed down the so-called Squidgate incident. At the same time, he personally confirmed the Greek status of Prince Carol and Wilhelmina, who were his grandson and granddaughter after all. As for Frederick's thoughts, facing the fact that he could not give birth to his third son, he could only think of ways to appease them. Well, I admit that I am more selfish, but now is an extraordinary period. Doing this will appease Queen Victoria in Buckingham Palace in London, and at the same time reassure the eldest son Hendrik, who is far away in Melbourne. It is a two-pronged approach, and it can appease the already restless hearts of Greece. That's right, even if they know that these two children are not born by the crown prince, they are their grandsons and have the right to inherit the Greek throne. This is enough to shut them up. William I suddenly said harshly, but these guys actually deliberately led to expand the attack on the royal family, which cannot be easily forgiven. It's time to suppress them, otherwise they may jump higher one day. William IV, who was far away in Melbourne in the Far East, breathed a sigh of relief after learning about the situation in Athens. William IV felt a little embarrassed for the first time in many years when he saw the middle-aged Dutch International Intelligence Director Mackay Shawn and the Dutch Royal Intelligence Director Bill Charles deliberately lowering their heads when William IV was looking through the information about Greece. Using intelligence agencies to help him collect information about his lover, and it was his own brother-sister, this was unlearned and romantic. The two people who were familiar with his past with Princess Louise were very silent about it. William IV was very satisfied. It turned out that people who worked in intelligence had a tight mouth. However, Alexandra was a smart person. Although she concealed it well, William IV knew that she was already familiar with his affair with Princess Louise, but she pretended not to know. That's right, there are very few kings in the European royal family who have not had an affair. For example, Christian IX had one. Oscar II, who has replaced Karl XVI as the King of Sweden, is even more famous for his romanticism. The future King Edward VI of the United Kingdom and the current British Crown Prince Edward are even more fond of fireworks. The only one who really had no scandals was Charles XV. Well, he admitted that he was making excuses for himself. He also admitted that he was willing to continue exchanging letters with Princess Louise after 1863 and trained her to be ambitious, which greatly satisfied his own calculations. And in 1872, he began to pick the ripe and tender peaches himself. Who told Frederick, who had always been hostile to him, that he was inhumane? William IV immediately threw all this out of his mind, then coughed twice and said, "What is the reaction from the British side?" Buckingham Palace has been silent so far, and there is no response, Mackay Shawn said truthfully. Has the Claxton government recently begun to increase its interaction with President Mitre of Argentina? Mackay Shawn, yes. William IV, in that case, then the operation code-named Fox of South America can be implemented. Chapter 664, Argentina enters the game. 1857, Sarmiento became the Argentine government's ambassador to the United Kingdom. From 1858 to 1864, Argentina's ambassador to the Netherlands. From 1865 to 1870, Argentina's Minister of Finance. And from 1871 to 1876, Argentina's Minister of the Interior. He has been the Vice President of Argentina since 1877. As Sarmiento's official position became higher and higher, the Sarmiento family began to emerge in Argentina, and after 20 years of development, it has now become a prominent family in the country. Sarmiento tightly controls the secondary power of Argentina's military and political ministers, and his power in Argentina's military and political ministers, an economic lifeline, is second only to the Mitre family. The Sarmiento family and the Mitre family are currently the owners of a quarter of the land in Argentina, of which Sarmiento occupies 1/10, and the Mitre family occupies 15%. The 57-year-old Mitre family is not satisfied with the status quo, and wants to exert more influence on Argentina. At the same time, as his power in Argentina became more consolidated, with the support of Sarmiento, he was full of ambition to expand his influence outside Argentina more strongly. For example, he wrestled with Brazil and Uruguay a few years ago, and joined forces with Brazil to repel the Paraguayan political strongman who tried to retake Uruguay and went south to Uruguay. As the situation in Chile became confusing, President Mitre was now very concerned about the situation in Chile, which had a narrow border with Argentina in the west. Obviously, Mitre was no longer satisfied with only having an influence in Uruguay, and Chile would also be the direction for Argentina under his leadership. It seemed that the whole of Argentina was flourishing under Mitre's leadership, especially as Europe's grain production decreased in recent years. As the world's largest grain exporter, Argentina became a guest of honor in European countries. Therefore, in addition to receiving huge foreign exchange income, it also purchased many advanced weapons from Europe. For example, among the Dutch weapons submarines, Argentina purchased 3 second-generation B-type submarines that were more advanced than the first-generation A-type submarines. As for battleships, Argentina ordered the Argentine steam ironclad battleship in 1877 and received it from the Netherlands in 1872. At the same time, in order to balance, Argentina ordered a Bold-class steam ironclad battleship from Britain. It should be noted that the latter was not put into service in Britain until 1869. In order to win over Argentina, Britain also accepted the order. Because of this, the relationship between Britain and Argentina has been greatly promoted. At this time, the international community also doubted Argentina's attitude towards the Netherlands. This is exactly what Britain wants. This fight between Britain and the Netherlands and Chile may be a huge opportunity for Argentina. Look at the map. If Argentina succeeds in further exerting influence in Chile, Argentina will not need to pass through the Strait of Magellan and the Drake Passage in the future. As long as we open up land channels to Chilean ports such as Santiago to reach Argentina, we can shorten the journey. So I think Argentina must become an important influencer of Chile, instead of quietly watching the Netherlands and Britain scramble for the fat meat of Chile. Sarmiento's words touched Mitre's heart. Sarmiento is 50 years old this year, while Mitre is 57 years old. The age difference between the two is that of seniors and juniors, so Sarmiento is very supportive of Mitre, and Mitre has been cultivating Sarmiento with all her heart. However, after Sarmiento became vice president, Mitre intentionally or unintentionally suppressed him in order to pave the way for his son. His only son, Carter, is only 25 years old this year, but he is already the mayor of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. This is obviously using his power to support Carter. Buenos Aires, as the capital, is not only geographically located, but also politically the center of the country. This is obviously an operation to cultivate a successor. Sarmiento naturally understands the reason. So despite being suppressed, he still endured. Moreover, Mitre is famous for her hatred. Back then, she relied on her ruthlessness to successfully fight her way out of Argentina and become president. At this time, if there is no accident, he can still work as the president of Argentina for at least another 20 years. In 20 years, his eldest son Carter has already been trained. Because of this, Sarmiento has been a bit sloppy recently, changing his way to go with the flow and becoming a yes man for President Mitre. And this is exactly what Mitre wants to see. So on September 25, 1878, under the background of Sarmiento, the Argentine Congress passed a resolution that Argentina would send a 200,000-man army alone to participate in the peacekeeping operation in Chile. The location was chosen between the front lines of the British and Dutch armies in Neuquén, the capital of the Rio Negro province on the Argentine side, which would form a triangular military feature. The Argentine Ministry of Foreign Affairs later stated that it would not allow its neighbors to be occupied by powerful countries, requiring Britain and the Netherlands to exercise restraint and requiring the two countries to work with Argentina to ease tensions within Chile. The Argentine Ministry of Foreign Affairs also stated that it would not allow Chile to be occupied by major powers. Well, many people in Argentina have already regarded Chile as their own. Melbourne, Australia. Argentina has finally joined the game, William Ivey said proudly. Now everything is ready, and the east wind is starting to blow. Gerrit de Vries nodded and said, at present, Britain seems to be acquiescing to Argentina's actions. It seems that Britain is indeed trying its best to win over Argentina. The most famous thing about British political diplomacy is not strength, but the most practical way to create balance for them. William Ivey followed with disdain, but that is based on absolute strength. Britain now does not have the ruthlessness and strength it had 20 years ago. Sir Gerrit, now we need to strengthen diplomacy with Ecuador, Peru, Colombia and Bolivia. Only by grasping these four countries can the next plan be steadily promoted. Finally, William IV said, "The British Empire is looking at the sea. Although the army has been good for so many years, it is only good. Britain is strong in the navy. Although the army is good, the British army has been the main reason for losing the war many times." William IV understood this point, so he won over the four South American countries and formed a 50,000-strong army of the five-nation coalition in order to attack the weaker side of Britain. The reason why Britain was made to wait so long this time was to let Argentina join the game. President Mitre has become more and more powerful in recent years. He has been cooperating with the Netherlands in secret and has flirted with Britain in recent years. William IV has seen this. Argentina is very important to the future strategy of the Netherlands and cannot afford to lose. Therefore, it is time to start the hidden chess of Sarmiento. Some people may ask how the Netherlands controls Sarmiento. William IV can only secretly blame the other party for ignorance. Hiding for decades to cultivate and use spies may be a fantasy to many people, but William IV knows how to do it. Chapter 665 Australia with unlimited potential. The Netherlands was once ruled by Spain. In the 16th century, William I, Prince of Orange, led the people to launch a war of independence. They designed an orange-white-blue tricolor flag. The color was derived from the seal of the House of Orange. You can tell by looking at the seal, a white horn on a blue ground and decorated with an orange robe. After 1630, because the color was not bright enough and difficult to identify on the battlefield, some people at that time proposed to replace the orange with red and deepen the blue, but the government and the royal family were unwilling to make changes over the years. On September 28, 1878, the Ministry of the Interior of the Dutch cabinet government announced that from October 1, 1978, the Dutch flag would be changed. Although it is still a tricolor flag, it will be changed from orange, white and blue from top to bottom to red, white and blue. This time, His Majesty King William IV of the Netherlands issued a decree to formally stipulate that the colors of the Dutch flag are vermilion, white and cobalt blue, and from October 1, 1878, all Dutch institutions or organizations around the world will change to the new flag. The change of the national flag is just to follow the trend. For William IV, it is just a small matter. The recent news from Greece has relieved William IV. And in Melbourne, Alexandra doesn't seem to care, pretending not to know about it. However, it is obvious that the relationship between the couple is no longer as harmonious as before, which can be seen from the fact that the two have been sleeping in separate rooms more and more recently. Well, William IV knew that he had anticipated this scene since he slept with Princess Louise when he visited Athens, Greece in 1872. What he worried about for more than 6 years has finally come true. He is somewhat mentally prepared. But when he thinks about the current situation, the incident has gradually settled down, and Athens has also gradually calmed down. Carol, his chief son, also sat on the position of Duke of Sparta. It seems that his father William III was completely disappointed with Frederick. You know, the title of Duke of Sparta has always been held by the Crown Prince, but now it has been given to William III's grandson. This seems to be the era of two strong heirs to the Kingdom of Greece. And with this operation, you can see that William III is preparing to escort his grandson Carol. William IV remembered the history of William III in his previous life. It seemed that his chief father William III lost his wife Queen Zofia on June 3, 878. In 1879, at the age of 61, he married Princess Emma of the Duchy of Waldeck-Pyrmont under the German Empire, who was 41 years younger than him and only 20 years old. Finally, in 1880, she gave birth to the famous Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. After William III died in 1890, because the bloodline of the Dutch royal family had been cut off, she thought that the only royal bloodline inherited the throne of the King of the Netherlands at the age of only 10. Now William IV has changed his own fate. Historically, he died on June 11, 1879 as the Crown Prince of Orange, and his third brother Frederick inherited the position of the Prince of Orange and the Crown Prince of the Netherlands, but he also died with him in 1884. In just 6 years, William III lost his wife, welcomed a 20-year-old young wife, lost his eldest son in 1879, gave birth to his eldest daughter Wilhelmina at the age of 62 in 1880, and when Wilhelmina was 4 years old, the only male heir Frederick, the third son, also left him. Only Wilhelmina and his young wife Queen Emma accompanied him until his death in 1890, and Wilhelmina's position as the king was established. What William I didn't know was that as Wilhelmina ascended the throne to become the Queen of the Netherlands, her mother Princess Emma followed Berlin's command and gradually made the originally neutral Netherlands a vassal of the German Empire. Obviously, this was a huge conspiracy, and even William IV suspected that the successive deaths of his brothers in history might have been caused by the German Empire. With the arrival of William IV, Dutch history has changed. William II has also moved to Greece to become the king. Not only did Prince Carol, born to him, and Princess Louise, become the Duke of Sparta in Greece, but even his daughter, born in 1876, was named Wilhelmina. William IV had absolutely no intention of participating in any naming. This was William II who helped to name her as a grandfather. The wheel of history seems to have changed its course with its arrival, just like the current situation in Europe. However, as he took most of the strength of the Netherlands away from Europe to the Far East where Australia is located, the strength of the Netherlands in Europe weakened, and Europe seemed to have returned to its original historical track. Unfortunately, South America has become a touchstone for the Netherlands, Britain, etc. to test their current strength. It is sad, but it is also true that there must be something hateful about pitiful people. Paraguay's expansionist ambitions, Argentina and Brazil's repeated struggles for the position of the boss of South America, etc., have caused the current South Americans to catch fire at the slightest touch. It is far away from Europe and Australia, but it will not affect the territory of Britain and the Netherlands. Therefore, although Britain and the Netherlands declared war, they chose Chile as the battlefield tacitly. Talking about diplomacy every day is not the only thing for William IV. He still needs to eat, sleep, attend mass, deal with domestic problems, and set aside time every day to promote the development of the Netherlands in all aspects. Yes, no success is achieved in one step. It takes a long time to pave the way before going further. Telegraph, telephone, high-voltage transmission line, mechanical lathe, electric light, pump, etc. are enough to change the process of human development. Of course, making steel and prospering the Dutch steel industry provided high-quality and cheap steel for the railway era of the Netherlands. Steel is not only used in lathes, which promoted the progress of electrical machinery in the Netherlands, but also widely used in bridges, ships, building structures and weapons and munitions. In short, with the promotion of William IV, various iron mines in the Australian continent and the Far East have blossomed everywhere and entered a prosperous mineral era. On September 29, 1878, the United Dutch Industries Company announced in Melbourne that its experts had jointly proposed the theory of allotropy and made significant progress in the experiment. The company stated that it would provide the metal market with high-quality alloys specifically for tool manufacturing and military cannon casting. The Socialist Party greatly supported the United Dutch Industries Company in the Dutch Parliament. With the support of the Socialist Party, the Dutch Ministry of Finance will allocate more than 5 million Dutch guilders, £200,000, from the budget to support the market practicality of the United Dutch Industries Group's experiment. It was with such strong support from the Dutch government that, starting at the end of 1878, electrometallurgy greatly increased the output of aluminum, and at the same time, various alloy metals came on the scene, making the world's metal ranks shaken. If the iron industry is the giant of the first industrial revolution, then their true successors are the current steel kings of various countries, such as Schneider, the current steel king outside the Netherlands, and Krupp of the German Empire. In the Netherlands, this is almost monopolized by the three major consortiums. In this era, steel production has also become a key indicator of the industrial strength of countries around the world. At the same time, the speed, efficiency and comfort of transportation in the Netherlands have been rapidly improved. John McAdam, a new immigrant and currently a senior lecturer at the University of Sydney, invented the gravel asphalt pavement in Sydney in January 1878, marking a new era in road construction. Especially now that bicycles, motorcycles and even cars have appeared on the streets of the Netherlands, especially with four-wheeled cars, Daimler, Otto and Mercedes-Benz, the three major car brands, on the road more and more. The appearance of asphalt pavement is a great use of it. Sydney Harbour Bridge. This bridge was built to connect the North Shore and the central area of the city. It is located in Sydney, Australia. The construction period is 7 years. It was completed in 1876 and is the largest single steel bridge in the world today. Depending on the temperature, The bridge may expand and contract, resulting in a height difference of 18 centimeters. This is the most famous bridge in the Far East. It carries buses and cars, bicycle lanes and pedestrian paths. It is called a coatrack by the Dutch because of its unique appearance. At the same time, the Sydney Opera House, which was completed in 1877, is located next to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. The landscape of it and the Sydney Harbour Bridge is famous all over the world. At the same time, Dutch bridge expert Telford built the first suspension bridge connecting the two sides of the river across the Murray River in South Australia, marking that the Netherlands has reached a new height in bridge technology. At the same time, because the railways built by the Netherlands in Far East Australia are all the latest, the tracks and speeds used are more technologically advanced than those in Europe. Therefore, the Dutch Australia Island Railway, the North-South Railway of the headquarters, and the numerous railways in the East carry more passengers and goods faster than Europe. The price is also lower. In 1800, the journey from Paris to St. Petersburg took 20 days, but in 1877, it only took 40 hours. In Australia, it also takes a month to go west from Sydney to Perth in Western Australia, but with the advanced railway technology of the Netherlands, it only takes 30 hours. Because of the convenience brought by the railway, all of Europe is intoxicated with the efficiency of the railway and its fascination with the railway. Now, the European mainland of the Netherlands has become the most densely populated railway network in the world, with 32.8 kilometers of railway per square kilometer, 15 kilometers in the UK, 12 kilometers in Germany, and Sweden, which has the longest railway network per capita at that time, with 21 kilometers of railway per 10,000 people, 17 kilometers in the European mainland of the Netherlands, and the least per capita railway mileage in Siberia, only 1.5 kilometers, and 3.7 kilometers of railway per 10,000 people in the European part of the Russian Empire. The entire Kingdom of the Netherlands, taking the Australian continent as an example, has an average of 5 kilometers per square kilometer, which is mainly because the Australian continent is too large, while the Australian per capita has 11 kilometers, which is also forgivable. After all, the Netherlands has only ruled Australia for 14 years. All these technological innovations are opportunities for the Netherlands, and William IV believes that the potential of the Netherlands in the future is absolutely top-notch. Chapter 666, Frontline, We Will Win. South America, Chile, Kenya, Temuka. Sir, hurry up, the British are probably preparing to attack. The accompanying officer pretended to grab Shrek, the training officer who was supporting Arturo Lozan's army. Shrek was originally going to stay here, but after seeing the worries of the Chilean officers and soldiers, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart, nodded, and walked towards the headquarters. It was not that he was afraid of death, but as long as he was here, both the soldiers and the Chilean officials would be distracted. Anyway, he had already given a lot of his war skills to the other side in the past few years. It would be better to leave and let these Chilean soldiers, who were considered as students, fight this battle with peace of mind. Since Shrek arrived in Chile in 1870, he began to help Arturo Lozan train the army on the edge of the Andes Mountains, especially Arturo Lozan trusted him. In the past 8 years, the 10 Dutch soldiers under his leadership have trained 50,000 troops for Chile. At present, more than half of Arturo Lozan's 80,000 troops have been trained by them. Therefore, all the soldiers and officers in front of him have deep respect for him. It can be imagined that if the British are repelled this time and the army of the former government President Mascherano is crippled and eliminated, then based on the goodwill of these soldiers in front of him towards the Netherlands will definitely achieve the greatest influence on Chile, a country on the eastern Pacific coast. It is not impossible to even control the country. Although he did not know what His Majesty William IV and the current Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries thought, according to the Netherlands' previous foreign practices, he believed that Chile's change to a pro-Dutch country was definitely a major event in South America. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think of the time before he came to Chile in 1870, when he was personally received by William IV in the Melbourne military camp, and more than 20 people were received with him at the same time. These people were all people that the Netherlands was preparing to secretly choose to intervene in the internal situations of various countries around the world. Although he had never known the whereabouts of these comrades in arms in the country, thinking about his own experience, he knew that His Majesty had invested so much energy. At the same time, he was also shocked by His Majesty's generous actions. In the past, The alliance between the Netherlands and these countries was based on mutual trust with strong presidents. However, judging from the actions of His Majesty, from deploying them to various countries in 1870, it is clear that His Majesty William IV does not trust these strong presidents. Under the circumstances of distrust, the mission of deploying these people to various countries is naturally to support opponents or opposition parties. Now, after 8 years, he has finally helped Arturo Lozon to move forward in the direction indicated by the Netherlands step by step. Victory is just around the corner, which makes Shrek excited. This is still a sense of achievement that is about to be successful. However, before that, he needs to carefully complete the step in front of him, which is to deal with Mascaeno's counterattack with the support of Britain. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but frown. Britain arrived in Chile half a month ago, but in the past half month, it has been sitting still. He may guess that the other party is waiting for the support of the British Army or the South African Army. After all, the practice of the Netherlands to form a five-nation coalition surprised himself and caused a huge storm throughout the Americas. What's more, the enemy is the British. Shrek is still a Chilean training officer in name, with a rank of Dutch Army Colonel, but Arturo Lozon promoted him to Major General of Chile, becoming the fourth person in the actual Chilean military, second only to the President, Chief of Staff, and Minister of the Army of Chile. He deserves the word superior they just called him. The war is about to begin, and the Chilean war headquarters can no longer be set up near the port where the target is obvious. After a pair of shoes, the Dutch training officers and thousands of Chilean officers and soldiers have worked hard to build fortifications and artillery positions. Many secret underground headquarters have also been built, and the command headquarters have naturally moved here to command a war. Shrek, escorted by the officers, rode back to the headquarters on horseback, and Chilean Army Minister Mesip, who was holding a telescope to observe the movements of the joint army formed by Mascaeno and the British Army, also breathed a sigh of relief. The British warship is bluffing. Shrek, who returned to the command post, also used a telescope to watch the movements of the British and Mascaeno troops. He did not expect that the muzzles of the British warships kept moving around, but they did not fire. After watching for more than 20 minutes, it was still like this. In the north where the British Navy was unwilling, well, about 10 kilometers away, the Dutch steam battleship New Zealand also remained motionless. It seemed that the two countries had a tacit understanding that they were just guarding there with swords. Mesip also nodded, I guess the British Navy is also waiting for the opportunity, and now Britain and the Netherlands are watching the movements on land. After the results on land come out, it may be time for the two navies to confront each other. Maybe in their seriousness, they don't think much of the strength of our Chilean armies in the north and south. In their seriousness, they should disdain to attack our land army. The hand holding the telescope suddenly trembled, and Mesip suddenly reacted. Shrek next to him was from the Netherlands. What he said just now seemed to be a bit defensive. Shrek seemed not to notice, but sighed and said, neither country took direct action because they are both waiting for the other side to make a move in order to gain the moral high ground. We don't have this concern on land, but there are also difficulties on land. That is, as long as we open fire, we will have to suffer a lot. It's either you die or I'll lose. And now the muzzles of the British warships are moving horizontally towards us, which means they just want to put psychological pressure on us again. Mesip looked at his pocket watch and smiled. After an hour, if the other side does not move, we will attack according to the plan. Sir Shrek, do you think we will win? Of course we will win, Shrek said as a matter of course. If we don't respond, the 8 years in Chile will not be wasted, not to mention that if we don't win, I would have fled the trenches here, fled Chile. At least Argentina is in a much better situation than Chile, isn't it? Messi laughed, as if encouraged, and nodded, I think so too. The two continued to stare at the British warships cruising in the sea in the distance with binoculars, and from time to time at the trenches of the Mascaeno army in the south. Obviously, what they said just now did not make them take it lightly. This is the quality of a so-called professional soldier. Chapter 667, The Dutch Dream of the Lower Class People in Europe. On October 2, 1878, the Australian Truth reported that the Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries announced in the capital Melbourne that the Dutch cabinet government had launched a national military training program for all territories of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to improve the defense level of cities and villages in various places. First, the employees of the Dutch National Administrative Department will participate in the military training for half a month from October 1 to October 15, and the whole people will participate from October 16th to October 31st. The main training subjects include design, emergency medical treatment, procedures for handling explosives, and how to provide protection under artillery fire and enemy attacks. Gerrit de Vries emphasized that such courses will be organized in each region of the Netherlands for a period of 1 month. This is based on the current war preparedness actions carried out by the Netherlands and the United Kingdom under the declaration of war on each other. Gerrit de Vries's approach successfully aroused the British response, and then the United Kingdom also announced similar practices in its homeland and overseas territories. In the tense atmosphere, the British people did not oppose the approach of the Claxton government. Obviously, compared with the British behavior in the face of the challenge of the Netherlands, which made them unhappy, participating in security training did not form resistance to their psychology. The international community could only stare in amazement at the actions of Britain and the Netherlands, and secretly tighten their defenses to prevent future wars from spilling over. However, when war seemed to be coming closer and closer, it did not hinder the scientific and technological development of the Netherlands and the world. One day in 1873, an 18-year-old medical student at the University of Sydney was doing experiments in a family laboratory on Pitt Street in Sydney, the largest city on the Australian continent. The child, who had just reached adulthood, was named William Henry Perkin. He wanted to extract a synthetic version of quinine, a drug for treating malaria. As a result, when he used potassium dichloride to dehydrogenate allethiamine, he accidentally obtained a new precipitate. After dehydration and alcohol extraction, he saw a brilliant color that no one had ever seen before. This was the world's first synthetic dye. The extremely excited William Henry Perkin called it red purple. When he reported his discovery to the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences, not only was the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences alarmed, but even the three giants including the Dutch East India Company, the Dutch Far East Group, and the Dutch United Industrial Group were all moved by the news and competed to win over each other. Obviously, everyone saw the huge market value of the new things Perkin discovered. However, in the end, William IV made the final decision, and the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences established William Henry Perkin as the youngest academician of the Academy, and formed a team to continue to expand new discoveries and seek more developments based on this discovery. At the same time, the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences also called this dye aniline purple, familiar to later generations based on the purple-red color of the mallow. Unexpectedly, 3 years later, on October 3, 1876, William Henry Perkin's team began to commercially produce aniline purple. His team has discovered and analyzed the chemical reactions that produced the above surprising results after researching and analyzing them in the past 3 years. His analysis confirmed that the use of hydrochloric acid or sodium nitrite to treat major aromatic amines, such as aniline, will produce diazo compounds. These diazo compounds react chemically with phenolic compounds or aromatic amines to produce various colorful products, which Perkin calls azo dyes. For example, treating aniline with hydrochloric acid or sodium nitrite will produce chlorinated diazonium benzene. Like other dyes, a basic feature of this diazo reaction is that it generates molecules called chromophores, that is, atomic beams that absorb a certain wavelength of light and give the final product a unique color. Under the demonstration effect of aniline purple discovered by William Henry Perkin, his team subsequently discovered a large number of artificial synthetic colors, including magenta and violet, 1873, lion color, discovered by Perkin in Lyon, France in 1874, so it is called lion color, aniline yellow and aniline black, 1875, and dahlia, Perkin green, Manchester brown, inspired in Manchester, England, and took the local name, alizarin red, London purple, etc. In January 1876, the team's discovery was first commercialized in cooperation with the Netherlands United Industrial Group. When the Dutch Post Office used aniline purple to print the famous one Dutch guilder lilac stamp, it immediately became fashionable in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Its color brought people a very shocking beauty. Even Britain, France and the German Empire were paying attention. The Dutch United Industrial Group, which had been prepared for this, established 2 aniline dye companies at this time and appointed Friedrich Bayer as the head of these 2 companies. This high-level technical immigrant from Germany finally ushered in his life highlight moment after immigrating to the Netherlands. He named the 2 companies Bayer and BASF. Therefore, in just over 2 years in 1878, The bright colors immediately captured people's hearts and soon made the Kingdom of the Netherlands the world's chemical center. By 1878, the scale of the Dutch chemical industry was 20 times that of the United Kingdom and more than 8 times that of the chemical powerhouse German Empire. Like the chemical industries of Britain and the German Empire, it was like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. It was precisely because the Netherlands began to fully support William IV after he traveled through time in 1857 that the Netherlands surpassed the former out-of-control chemical powerhouses German Empire and Britain in the chemical industry in the 1860s, establishing its position as the world's strongest chemical country. Synthetic dyes, driven by the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences, entered a field unknown to previous European dyers. These companies under the United Dutch Industries Company refined and invented a wide variety of synthetic and semi-synthetic substances. Modern chemistry broke the hypothesis that only nature and God could predetermine the intrinsic nature of various materials. Bayer, a subsidiary of the United Dutch Industries Group, first invented the semi-synthetic substance celluloid, January 1877, and the semi-synthetic fiber viscose fiber, March 1877. After these two new inventions appeared, Bayer and BASF used them to develop acetylparaaminophenotyl ether, June 1877, aspirin, September 1878, aspirin, acroflavine and epoxidine. They announced that they had become a company that integrates chemical industry and medical synthetic drugs. The two companies under the United Dutch Industries Group suddenly became the most watched companies in the Netherlands and even the world in 1878. Even the Dutch East India Company, which owned Edison, and the Dutch Far East Group, which owned the automobile giant formed by Carl Benz and Daimler, were suppressed. Obviously, under the leadership of the Dutch United Industrial Group, especially in February 1878, when Bakeland, Lash, and Oostermasland, the new immigrant technicians of the Dutch United Industrial Group, invented phenolic plastics, amino resins, and polyvinylamine, respectively, chemistry was not only a science, but also an art and a medicine. Chemical products became a basic component of material life. In 1877, William IV wore a green nightgown made of triphenylmethane, which was enough to show that synthetic products were not only practical, but also had aesthetic value. Billiards, also called table tennis, which was introduced to the world by the Dutch United Industrial Group, was even more popular around the world. It is said that this has become a topic that nobles and big capitalists like to talk about when they meet. William IV naturally knew this long ago, so his triphenylmethane nightgown, although it felt a little dangerous for chemical reactions, also played a huge free advertisement for the Dutch United Industrial Group. As Dutch industry entered the fast track of startup, a series of consequences have been brought about. In the economic field, with the development of money brokers, self-sufficient farmers have been transformed into wage earners, consumers and taxpayers with various new needs and new desires. The widespread circulation of paper money has also brought new skills and technologies to the fields of marketing, distribution and distribution. Scientific and technological breakthroughs have come one after another. Creation and invention are no longer the personal affairs of inventors, but have entered the stage of planned research and development. People's needs for different levels of financial services have stimulated the emergence of a large number of credit unions, savings banks and insurance companies. Commercial business has also increased significantly, promoting the standardization of weights and measures in currency. In the social field of the Netherlands, especially in the Australian continent and the Far East, 90% of the people are new immigrants in the past 20 years or more. Therefore, large-scale urbanization has brought a lot of new problems and formed a series of new social classes. Therefore, new public affairs have begun to be built in various parts of the Netherlands, led by the Australian continent. Emerging public affairs include paving roads, urban transportation, streets with the emergence of electric lights, street lighting, urban fire protection to prevent fires, water supply problems that must be solved under a large population, and drainage projects that cause water blocking on rainy days after the dense construction of new residential buildings, as well as urban planning, hospitals, parks and police, a series of new professions or the need to increase new positions, etc. In short, the Netherlands has now become the most watched economy in the world, without a doubt. There are many countries in the world that imitate the development path of the Netherlands, among which the German Empire and the United States of America are the most serious, and Sweden and Denmark are also unwilling to lag behind, while Britain and Austria-Hungary are also selectively learning. Well, William IV himself was a little flattered when he saw this. Now the industrialization of the Netherlands has promoted waves of population migration to the Netherlands. After all, the employment demand gap in the Netherlands is too large. In European countries, the unemployment rate is generally above 20%. Even the powerful country Britain is around 10%. The German Empire may be around 12%. The United States of America may be better, at around 9%. The Russian Empire is even between 25%. Moreover, the jobs in these countries are still low-paid and long-working jobs. The 10-hour system in the Netherlands and the world's highest per capita income have become a place that the lower class of European society yearns for. In particular, the Far East of the Netherlands has become a paradise in the imagination of people because it is far away from war. Perhaps, the American dream of later generations has already happened to the current Dutch dream. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 668, Where does the Netherlands get the confidence from? The super-industrialization of the Netherlands has fueled waves of population migration. Many people from the lower classes in Europe first migrated to the Netherlands, and then became Dutch citizens. Under the guidance of public opinion, some immigrants went to the Far East, came to the Far East of the Netherlands to open up wasteland, and then migrated from local villages to factories, and then migrated from villages to towns on a local scale. However, this is different from immigration within European countries. Immigration within their countries will cause overcrowding, housing shortages, homelessness, unemployment and even cholera, which are pushed up by them. Fortunately, William IV had begun to prepare for this many years ago. In particular, the Far East is surrounded by the sea, and the intensive naval patrols have effectively prevented smuggling to the lowest level. Most of the new immigrants are legal immigrants. In this case, registered new immigrants are very susceptible to regulation and employment arrangements. The increase in new immigrants has also caused many surprises in the cultural field. Originally, the Netherlands began to implement primary education in 1862, and then in 1875 it began to take the lead in implementing 9 years of compulsory education in the world, targeting cities. Now, under the impetus of William IV, the Dutch government has begun to prepare for the implementation of compulsory education in rural areas, while cities are moving towards a higher level of 12 years of compulsory education. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that William IV attaches great importance to education and culture. Therefore, in the field of culture, the popularity and level of Dutch education are greatly improved. Rural residents basically must have basic human capabilities, children must receive universal primary education, and a large number of assemblers, technicians and apprentices must receive vocational education. Higher technical education is committed to training engineers and researchers. The Dutch government and business leaders advocate the establishment of new secondary schools to train administrative backbones for public service agencies, overseas territorial management departments and industrial departments. The education of new immigrant women in the Netherlands also began in the Far East in 1870. William IV was delighted to find that with his support, the large-scale literacy in the Netherlands paved the way for the emerging popular culture. Since he came to power in 1862, a large number of popular magazines, poor novels, legendary literature, detective novels, comic magazines, inspirational books and family reading materials have been published in the Netherlands. Stable jobs and a stable family environment allow people with a fixed income to try all kinds of new ways of leisure and entertainment. Now the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, the largest city in the Netherlands, holds weekly concerts that are packed with people, most of whom are from the middle class, because in the past, concerts in Europe were only for the upper class and capitalists. The middle class with insufficient social status could only tiptoe and try to squeeze in, but it was difficult to squeeze in, not to mention the people at the bottom of society. However, the Netherlands has broken the record in this regard. As long as the bottom of society spends more, they can enjoy the life of the nobles for a short time, which will be unforgettable for a lifetime. Even for just one day, it has become the direction of their efforts. In addition to high-end concerts, family vacations, travel, climbing and various sports, in 1872, the Kingdom of the Netherlands became the world's first football association, and Sydney and Melbourne held the first match under the association. Football has become a remarkable event between various parts of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the past 6 years. Even the workers in the Netherlands are organizing to play football. Influenced by the Netherlands, soccer has also become popular in South America. Since 1875, the Netherlands has held joint competitions with South American countries every year to show friendship. Of course, the venue is in the far east of the Netherlands. However, the upper class will always distinguish between themselves and the lower class. For example, since the threshold of the concert has been lowered, the Dutch nobles and big capitalists have shown their status by playing golf. Well, William IV is unwilling to stop it, because only when the hierarchy is clear, the people below will climb higher mountains and make efforts, which can be regarded as a kind of motivation. At the same time, the Dutch-Australian continent has also become the most important venue for bicycle competitions. Here alone, more than 200 bicycle competitions are held every year, and the scale is gradually expanding. Now in the Netherlands and Europe, international bicycle competitions are also held to serve Europeans. To William IV's surprise, some Italian immigrants in the Kingdom of the Netherlands were so creative that they were influenced by the Colosseum in Italy and held the first wrestling event in Sydney, the largest city in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, in 1876. It attracted great attention and people were excited. As a result, the bloodiness of the Dutch increased, which brought a boost to the army. For this reason, the Netherlands began to use it as a model, and many retired soldiers began to participate in the activities, which played an unexpected role in increasing the employment of retired soldiers. This has to be said to be a surprise. For this reason, William IV wanted to return to the WWE Fake Wrestling Exercise League in the United States in later generations. Maybe it would be good to bring this to 100 years ago. The religious culture of the Netherlands also underwent great changes and developed rapidly at this time. The church halls in the city parishes became the center of social, charity and alcohol abstinence activities. In Protestant areas, the church established the world's earliest industrial suburbs and private church elementary and secondary schools, and appointed worker pastors. At this time, scholars in Dutch universities sought to understand the changes in the world and created a series of new social sciences. For example, economics, ethnology, anthropology, linguistics and sociology are popular in the Dutch reading market. Each new discipline has a profound impact on traditional research fields such as philosophy, science, history and literature. In the field of psychology, urban and industrial life has led people to develop attitudes that are unfamiliar to rural residents. In short, the current development of the Netherlands is all round. At present, in the field of politics, as all universities have this subject, international politics and even the contradictions and tricks within the major parties in the Netherlands can be discussed openly, so political science is also very popular, and international politics has become the most discussed place. Dutch politicians are no longer limited to traditional Dutch political family. Instead, they must face politicians who are the audience of taxpayers. Moreover, these politicians must listen to people's increasingly sophisticated and confident expressions of different opinions, otherwise they will face the risk of being eliminated in the election. This is what William IV wants to see. This is exactly what the Netherlands has joined the Socialist Party, the third largest party, to break the traditional Dutch monopoly of the Liberal Party and the Christian Party, and the weak political style. It is precisely because of these conditions that have been laid out that William IV dares to challenge Britain now. Chapter 669, Building the Basic Science System in the Netherlands. Mr. Kodak is the General Manager of the Technology Research and Development Department of the Netherlands United Industrial Group, but he also has another identity, that is, the Vice President of the Netherlands United Industrial Group, one of the only 5 vice presidents with real power besides the president. In addition, he noticed what Mendeleev said just now. What does it mean to let him participate in leading a project plan? That is to say, Mendeleev in front of him will be one of the leaders of a new project? In an instant, he felt a little ashamed of his pride just now. Just now, he was still self-satisfied because he was an employee of a subsidiary of the Netherlands United Industrial Group. Now Mendeleev in front of him was so shocking that he split his little pride like lightning. Well, I have to say that he was instantly paraffined. At this time, 2 people dressed in formal suits and ties appeared not far away from him. The 2 people held signs with his name on them, and seemed to be waiting for someone. The clothes of the 2 people were obviously expensive, which attracted many people at the dock. Obviously, The person who can be worth waiting for the two people must be of high status. Suddenly, Zeskikov saw the name clearly, and his eyes bulged. At this moment, Mendeleev next to him looked over and said with an apologetic look on his face, "Mr. Zeskikov, the person waiting for me is there, let's go first." Although Zeskikov is a good person, he also attaches great importance to face, so in recent years he has only been a mid-level manager of a subsidiary of the Netherlands United Industrial Group. Originally, with his personality, he should have left because of the problem of face, angry or inferior, but today I don't know what he was thinking, but he chose to not and followed. Mendeleev looked at the other party seriously, and then walked towards the two people over there. Zeskikov was lucky this time. Because of this encounter with Mendeleev, he got the connections in the head office and finally became one of the heads of the subsidiary. It can be regarded as one of the senior heads of the Netherlands United Industrial Group. Mendeleev was highly valued when he came to Melbourne. Later, his family was brought here one after another. He lived here for 30 years until he passed away in 1907. Melbourne, Australia, the Royal Palace of the Netherlands. William IV knew about Mendeleev when he arrived at the port of Melbourne, who made him a very important person for the future of the Netherlands. On March 11, 1869, Dmitry Mendeleev, a professor at St. Petersburg University and born in 1834, was preparing to travel to Kalinin. He concentrated on writing the textbook Principles of Chemistry, secretly formulating the science promotion plan of the always knowledgeable Tsarist Russian Empire, and was commissioned to develop a method for making farm cheese. At that time, his textbook was about the classification of chemical elements. For this reason, he needed to find a system to classify and distinguish various elements. On March 1, he suddenly got inspiration and found a way to arrange various elements into a table according to the atomic weight and the same characteristics of each element. But it did not attract much attention in the Tsarist Russian Empire. So this made Mendeleev very sad. After all, something that has not been recognized by others makes everyone doubt themselves. Although 9 years later, in 1866, Mendeleev attended the first International Chemical Congress held in Karlsruhe. At the meeting, the Italian Stanislaus Cannizzaro reminded him to pay attention to the element table arranged according to atomic weight. But that's all, but it was the first influence. Mendeleev has been playing a kind of intellectual card game since then, arranging various elements according to atomic valence and different characteristics. He finally combined Stanislaus Cannizzaro with his own classification and grouping methods, and the result was the earliest style of the periodic table. This is what he said when he studied chemistry in his previous life. Before Mendeleev, people's understanding of chemical elements was scattered. The ancients identified 10 real elements, but their understanding of the 4 elements of earth, fire, air, and water was intertwined. Lavoisier identified 23 elements, and Humphrey Davy separated sodium and potassium by electrolysis. In 1860, Cannizzaro listed 60 elements in the element table in Karlsruhe, which is exactly 2/3 of the 90 elements that exist in nature. However, Mendeleev's discovery did not win much direct support. Even some of the most important chemists in Britain and Germany, including undergraduates who Mendeleev once worked with at Heidelberg University, refused to accept Mendeleev's invention. It was precisely because of this that when he met with the president of the Netherlands United Industrial Group last year, he reminded the other party. In the end, the other party did not disappoint him and really took the unappreciated Mendeleev to Australia. In the original history, Mendeleev's opportunity came in 1879. A Frenchman identified a new element called gallium. Mendeleev was able to prove this new element, and it was one of the 6 unknown elements whose existence, atomic weight and properties he could predict. At this time, the Russian Empire theorist proved that his theory went beyond the laboratory, which surprised the entire international chemical community, and international reputation and wealth followed. And his future inventions of atomic structure, and his theory of radioactivity, which he believed contradicted his periodic law, were later proved to be radioactivity that finally confirmed his great discovery that the number of electrons contained in the atoms of each element is closely related to its atomic number and chemical properties. In short, Mendeleev came to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which would make him more fortunate than his previous life in the Russian Empire, because he met his mentor. As long as he continuously provided him with enough resources, even if he could not reach the level of a figure like Einstein, he would be enough to become one of the top figures in the future chemical world. As for the effects of these elements, any modern person in the future would know what this meant. This laid the foundation for the future industrial technology of the Netherlands. What William IV valued most was that as long as a system of Dutch chemical industry was established with Mendeleev, the master of the chemical industry, as the center, a chemical industry system that could compete with Germany could be established. Even surpass the other party. In the future industry, chemistry is definitely the most important basic science. As long as the foundation is laid, the derived industries and sciences in the future will move forward steadily. Think about the reason why the semiconductor chips of the motherland in the future were curbed one after another, which was caused by the lack of basic scientific foundation in the West, so William IV naturally tried to avoid similar situations in the Netherlands. Chapter 670, The Underestimated Father of Elements Mendeleev. 1878, at the port of Melbourne, a man with a full beard but wearing a neat suit and holding a cheap cigar in his left hand had just come from Europe and arrived at the port of Melbourne. It was exactly 8 o'clock in the morning in Melbourne. The sun was shining brightly on Mendeleev, who had just got off the ship, because of the time difference and the reversal of St. Petersburg, but his heart was full of excitement. At this moment, his companion Zeskikev, who was traveling with him, breathed a sigh of relief and walked up to him and smiled easily. Finally back to Melbourne, Mr. Mendeleev, I hope you will have a good life in the Netherlands in the future. Mendeleev also smiled and said, yes, I hope everything will be as good as expected. Looking at the busy dock in front of him, the scenes of loading and unloading are definitely not smaller than the dock scenes of London Steel, and the St. Petersburg dock is definitely incomparable. Mendeleev was very happy to see this scene, because it means that the city he is going to live in is a city no less than London. Mr. Zeskikev, it is said that in the far east of the Netherlands, there are two cities that are not as good as Melbourne. Mendeleev suddenly asked Zeskikev. Hearing this, Zeskikev said proudly, yes, in addition to the prosperous Melbourne in front of us, the Netherlands has several other big cities in the Far East, and Melbourne ranks second. Mendeleev was surprised and asked curiously, only second? Then who is the first? It's not his fault. He has been living in Europe before, and this is his third time leaving St. Petersburg, the second time to other European countries, and the first time to arrive in the Far East. It's Sydney, said his new friend on the ship in astonishment. In Sydney, the prosperity there is far beyond the imagination of Europeans. It can be said that Melbourne is a city where the Dutch are concentrated, but Sydney is the city with the largest number of immigrants from various European countries. In the local area, Dutch whites only account for 70% of the population. The other 30%, except for a few indigenous people, are all immigrants from Europe and North and South America. According to the Netherlands, this is the most international city in the world, far from being comparable to those big cities in European countries. At present, the population of Sydney exceeds 1 million. Hearing this, Mendeleev was immediately amazed. 1 million? That means nearly 300,000 are immigrants from various countries. If they are like him, they are all ready to come here with the idea of being unappreciated and fight for a place in the world, then the competition here in the future will also be cruel, but it will make him more excited because it represents more opportunities. Only through competition can we make progress. This has always been his most intuitive way of identification. Zeskikev seemed to see what Mendeleev was thinking, smiled secretly, and then said, I wonder what kind of work Mr. Mendeleev is going to do here. Mendeleev recovered from his surprise after hearing this, looked at the friend in front of him whom he had just met after the Shanghai ship in St. Petersburg, and then said, someone introduced me to a job, so I came here. Zeskikev said in surprise, I don't know what job it is, and my hometown is also in St. Petersburg. It's just that after the business failed in St. Petersburg 11 years ago, I wandered around in Europe for 2 years. I heard that there was a big development here, so I finally came here to give it a try. I didn't expect that I would succeed. So in a blink of an eye, I have lived here for 9 years. I am quite familiar with several cities in the Australian continent such as Melbourne and Sydney. At present, my company ranks among the top 100 in the Netherlands, and more importantly, our company is a subsidiary of the Netherlands United Industrial Group, one of the 3 most powerful groups in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. At this point, Zeskikev said with pride, being able to work there, my annual income is already among the high income earners in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. He is an employee of a subsidiary of the Netherlands United Industrial Group. His proud expression caught Mendeleev's eye, which made Mendeleev feel strange. Seeing the strange expression on Mendeleev's face, This partner who met on the ship immediately made him mistakenly think that this fellow from the Russian Empire named Mendeleev was envious. So Zeskikov kindly advised, "Don't worry, it may be a little difficult to get started when you first come here, but after you get familiar with the environment here, you can start your ambitions." The three major groups in the Kingdom of the Netherlands are huge, and the Netherlands United Industries Group, to which my current company belongs, is a new group, but its strength is not weaker than the Netherlands East India Company and the Netherlands Far East Group. Even in some of the most famous new research and developments in the world, our group has recently taken the lead, so there are many opportunities. Of course, before joining it, you must enrich your abilities. Mendeleev, which school did you graduate from? After Zeskikov asked casually, he said with concern, "If you have finished high school, then I can help you to study in a technical college in Melbourne for 1 year. In that case, you can enter our group's subsidiary as a technical college graduate. Of course, I mean the white-collar class, not the dock workers who need to sell their labor. If you have not graduated from high school, then it will be troublesome." He showed difficulty on his face. Mendeleev saw the difficulty revealed by the other party's kindness, and he didn't know how to answer. Zeskikov looked at Mendeleev's expression and guessed that he didn't even graduate from high school. It was hard to say, and he was embarrassed, but he said kindly, "If it doesn't work, just study in some junior colleges here for a year, and then study in a college for another year after graduation. Maybe you can get in that way." Zeskikov suddenly asked. Mendeleev knew that he could only say honestly at this time, "I graduated from St. Petersburg State University." Zeskikov didn't hear clearly for a while, and comforted, "St. Petersburg State High School? Do you have a high school diploma?" He thought Mendeleev didn't graduate, so he asked again with some regret. St. Petersburg State High School is also a famous school. Those who can study there are either rich or noble, or geniuses. The person in front of him didn't have a diploma? He suddenly felt it was a pity. At the same time, he felt a little superior. When I think about how I envied those students in that school back then, I feel proud that my work now surpasses theirs. Of course, this is human instinct. Mendeleev gritted his teeth and raised his voice, saying, "Mr. Zeskikov, I am a graduate of St. Petersburg State University. I have a diploma from St. Petersburg State University in 1850. At the same time, I also have a diploma from St. Petersburg Normal University in 1855, and I also obtained a teacher's certificate. After I graduated in 1855, I also had experience as a teacher in Odessa Middle School. In 1856, I obtained a degree in higher education and taught at St. Petersburg State University. In 1857, I was awarded the position of associate professor at St. Petersburg State University." Mendeleev seemed embarrassed and said, "In 1859, I also went to the University of Heidelberg in the then Kingdom of Prussia, now the German Empire, for further studies. Of course, all of this is in my luggage." He said regretfully, "Originally, I was going to go to the University of Amsterdam for exchanges in 1870, but at that time I heard that many of the top teachers at the University of Amsterdam had migrated to the Far East and joined the University of Sydney and the University of Melbourne, so I gave up in the end. In the end, I could only return to St. Petersburg to engage in scientific writing." In 1870 he became a professor of chemistry at St. Petersburg State University, and in 1871 he received a doctorate in chemistry. In 1873 he became a professor of general chemistry at St. Petersburg University, and in 1875 he became the head of the chemistry department. As Mendeleev detailed his amazing history, Zeskikov's eyes suddenly became bigger and bigger as Mendeleev spoke. Finally, he stared at Mendeleev in amazement, swallowed his saliva, and asked curiously with envy and respect, "I wonder which company in St. Petersburg has taken a fancy to you, Mr. Mendeleev, and even let you travel across the ocean to come here directly?" This time he was really curious. After all, if what Mendeleev said just now was true, then relying on the other party's status in St. Petersburg State University, he must be a top talent. You know, St. Petersburg State University currently ranks 10th in the latest half of the international university rankings. Ahead of it are 9 universities: Cambridge University, Sydney University, Melbourne University, Oxford University, University of Amsterdam, Humboldt University of Berlin, University of Paris, University of Vienna, and University of London. As long as the students who graduate from here will be talents that all countries will compete for. And this 44-year-old middle-aged Tsarist Russian with a flying beard in front of him is actually a student from St. Petersburg University? However, he is a professor at many universities, and even the director of the chemistry department of St. Petersburg University, which is the director of a subject. Just now, I asked him if he had a high school diploma. This made Zeskikov feel extremely embarrassed. So at this time, with curiosity and the idea of diverting his embarrassment, he asked the company that Mendeleev was recruited. He made up his mind that he must help his company to poach the other party. If such a top talent is snatched away by the Dutch East India Company and the Dutch Far East Group, it will be a loss for the Dutch United Industrial Group. After making up his mind, he showed what he thought was the most kind smile on his face and looked at Mendeleev. Mendeleev also saw Zeskikov's curiosity, and he immediately said helplessly, "Dutch United Industrial Group, I met their senior person in charge, Mr. Kodak, at an international scientific exhibition in St. Petersburg, and received his invitation, so I participated in the plan of a project led by him." Zeskikov was stunned. It turned out to be Mr. Kodak. Sorry, I forgot to upload this chapter. Chapter 671, Britain's Nightmare Also Comes to Chile? 1878, 4 hours, 45 minutes, and 21 seconds am. The Dutch-New Zealand fleet in Talcahuano Harbor, by Obio District, Chile, South America. The New Zealand fleet's commander, Vice Admiral Braga, and the fleet's deputy commander and chief of staff, Rear Admiral David Porter, chief of staff, Rear Admiral Stephen Decatur, Colonel James Barron of the New Zealand steam battleship, Captain William Bainbridge of the Wellington battleship, and Colonel Jesse Elliott of the Marine New Zealand Fleet Division attended. Rear Admiral David Porter, chief of staff of the New Zealand fleet, looked at his watch and smiled. There is only 1 hour left. We are attacking now, and the submarines cannot get too close to the enemy. It is hard to say how much damage the British fleet supporting from South Africa will suffer by firing torpedoes at close range. When they launch a counterattack, our submarines will be subject to anti-submarine operations, so our fleet needs to appear in the waters around the submarine battle at the same time, so that a sea area can be set up to provide a safe area for our submarines to avoid the enemy's full coverage of anti-submarine operations. Colonel James Barron of the New Zealand Fleet steam battleship New Zealand also smiled and said, "I believe that the submarine's torpedo attack will be able to overturn several British ships. Even if this effect is not achieved, the current British ports in the area must be attacked, and the new home of the other fleet will be turned into a sea of fire." William Bainbridge, the captain of the flagship battleship Wellington, nodded and said, "I agree with this approach. Submarine attacks and subsequent surface ships will be enough to tip the tide of the war to our side. At the same time, in addition to the war at sea, we can also mobilize our advantages on land and ask Arturo Luzon to launch a full-scale attack to the south. At that time, we can put Britain and the south, or the land, into a state of war." Britain didn't expect that the most important thing for us this time was to launch a submarine war. Chief of Staff Major General Stephen Decatur also agreed and said to Lieutenant General Braga with a smile, "This war will be the first time in 15 years since we, the Netherlands, have participated in a large-scale war since we manufactured submarines. Moreover, the opponent is Britain, a country that began to establish maritime hegemony 100 years ago. As long as we win this war, the Netherlands' status will definitely rise to the sky in one step. At least from now on, the Dutch Navy will be enough to gain a position to confront the British Navy. By then, we will have a new advantage in the Indian Ocean, and in the Pacific, the Anglo-Chilean naval battle will establish hegemony." Vice Admiral Braga looked at what the others said and did not object to their arguments. The New Zealand fleet was a naval force directly under the Netherlands and the Pacific Fleet. Like the Army-level forces under the Dutch Army Group, it had a large military structure and many staff officers. Of course, many of them were scattered on various warships, while combat officers were commanding warships on the warships. They were also coming and going, and seemed very busy. After all, they had to constantly adjust the performance of the warships and the status of the personnel, and they also needed to look for Vice Admiral Braga's signature from time to time to obey combat orders. Time passed by minute, and the entire Talcahuano port seemed to have entered a tense atmosphere, but it gradually quieted down. All the operations of the New Zealand fleet were confirmed to be correct, and the 9 warships were ready to go. As long as Vice Admiral Braga gave an order, they could immediately go south, and the southern regime and the British fleet that attacked Mascaiano in the early morning would happen immediately. When the time came to 5 o'clock, Braga stood up and said to Major General David Porter, Chief of Staff of the New Zealand Fleet, "The plan is launched, let's go." As Vice Admiral Braga gave the order, the fleet's warships left the port and headed south at full speed. According to the plan, it would take about 2 hours to reach Valdivia Port in Chile from Port of Talvano. By then, it would be a good time for the Navy to attack. This was the time point for Vice Admiral Bugara and his men to plan. The New Zealand steam battleship was the flagship of this fleet. Now the atmosphere on it was very descriptive because of the upcoming war. Braga had not experienced this kind of scene that was about to happen, but his forehead was still sweating involuntarily due to some tension, and his palms were also sweating. However, the early morning breeze from the eastern Pacific Ocean came slowly with a wind driven by the battleships heading south, which made him calm down quickly. As the orders were issued one by one, the muzzles of the 9 battleships in the entire fleet were slightly raised and had entered combat status. This was ordered by Vice Admiral Braga himself, because they had to go all out in this battle, just like a lion fighting a rabbit. Moreover, this time they were not facing a rabbit, but the British fleet, a naval tiger that dominated the world. Vice Admiral Braga immediately turned around and said, "Order all fleet officers and soldiers to pay attention. We have already passed an hour, and in another hour we will enter a state of direct confrontation with the enemy." The entire fleet extends its artillery fire and prepares to carry out the final preparations before a full coverage attack. After that, a staff officer went to issue the order. At the same time, Vice Admiral Braga applied very seriously at this time. He looked at his pocket watch, walked back to the battleship to look at a map, and then gave an order, "Prepare to call the submarine force to launch an attack. The time is set at 6:50 before we arrive at around 7 o'clock. After the attack, whether it is successful or not, disperse the formation and head north with all your strength until we arrive and then participate in the war." At the same time, he ordered the Chief of Staff David Porter next to him, "Immediately call President Arturo Lozon and ask his Chilean Army Minister Mesip on the front line to launch a land war to the south." David Porter immediately said, yes. As Braga's deployment orders were passed down one by one, the atmosphere of war suddenly enveloped everyone in the entire New Zealand fleet. No one would think that this was a war that must be won, and no one would think that they would be able to survive in this war, because the gunfire of the battleship was ruthless, so ruthless that no one knew it, and it only knew to devour lives to show its power and increase its results. At the same time, on land, South America, Chile, Araucania, and Temuco military region have now started to move south with more than 2/3 of the troops, according to the departure speed. It will arrive in an hour and a half. After all, it is more than half closer to the south. Temuco is only 30 kilometers away from Valdivia. As the army set out at 6 o'clock and advanced through the woods in the early morning, the action of the large army scared away the birds on the branches that had already woken up. They seemed to feel a wave of murderous aura. Shrek participated in the frontline war with Chilean Army Minister Mesip this time. Looking at the defense line of the southern domination that was getting closer and closer, Shrek said, "This time, it seems that we need to give the other side a heavy blow so that they can't get up." Messi nodded and said, "Yes, now that the five-nation coalition has arrived in Santiago, we are not afraid of an empty rear. Now 50,000 of our 80,000 troops have been deployed to the front line, 5,000 will stay in the rear as supplies, and 45,000 will launch a land attack on the 30,000 troops in the south. I don't believe we can't defeat the other side." Suddenly, he saw the hesitation on Shrek's face, and doubts arose in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "Is there something wrong, Instructor Shrek?" Shrek glanced at him, then smiled bitterly and expressed his concerns. "At present, it seems that we are outnumbered on land in the south, and we have the upper hand, but I always have some uneasy feeling." Uneasy Mesip couldn't help but frown when he heard it. Could it be that Instructor Shrek thought of some mistakes? "But we have prepared everything we should prepare, and there are not many conspiracies in this attack plan. We are directly advancing southward with strength. In the face of absolute strength, I don't think that the Mascaiano government in the south can turn the tables." Shrek said, "I hope so." But he was always uneasy in his heart. This was his vigilance since he joined the army for many years. His sixth sense has always been very accurate. The uneasy restlessness made him start to sort out everything that happened in the army and in the past few days. What exactly makes me feel uneasy? The army here should be able to crush the south, and at sea, the news from there proves that the Netherlands still has the advantage. At this time, There's still an uneasy feeling. Shrek thought about it, but he couldn't think of this worry. Finally, he could not help but choose to give up. Well, he had to admit that he could only let it go this time. I hope that there will be no accidents on the battlefield. Therefore, he and Chilean Army Minister Messick could only focus all their energy on accelerating the team. At the same time, in Santiago, the capital of Chile. At this time, President Arturo Lozán accompanied a lieutenant general-level soldier in military uniform with a grateful look on his face. However, unlike the lieutenant general-level uniforms worn by the Chilean army, the uniforms of these four people were different, especially the place on the left chest of each person, which was embroidered with several small flags like flags. When Arturo Lozán faced the few people in front of him, especially the soldier with the tricolor flag, his face was like a blooming flower, extremely beautiful, and this person was also a general. General Martínez, your arrival has made Chile no longer worried about the war situation. Arturo Lozán then said respectfully to the serious 60-year-old Dutch ace military giant in front of him, this time, you are the leader of the five-nation coalition. I think this is why the other four countries unanimously agree. After Arturo Lozán finished speaking, the other men in uniform agreed unanimously. They spoke half-baked Dutch, but they could understand it. General Martínez, the former leader of the Transvaal Republic in South Africa and the current deputy minister of the Dutch army, became the leader of the five-nation coalition promoted by William IV this time. Chapter 672, South Pacific Defense Line. The reason why the Chilean President Arturo Lozán in South America was so respectful to Martínez in front of him was naturally because of the terrible record of the Dutch army deputy minister in front of him. The other side defeated the British in South Africa and lost nearly 100,000 Boer leaders, and it was completed by mobilizing nearly 200,000 British troops and dozens of naval warships to block the South African sea passage. He is a strong man who shocked the world. It was because of this battle that the British Army's weaknesses were completely exposed, and at the same time, it also greatly hit the reputation that Britain had established for hundreds of years. It can be said that Martínez in front of him has done what many other international ambitious people in the world cannot do, and he has greatly relieved the anger of those who were suppressed and bombarded by Britain. Facing Martínez in front of him, who dares to take it lightly? And now that Chile is facing an intervention war with Britain, Martínez is the most powerful supporter of Chile, and Arturo Lozán is naturally willing to give him enough respect. As for the others, Arturo Lozán was much calmer. They were deputy military ministers from the four neighboring countries of Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, and Bolivia. This time, each country led 10,000 people to follow Martínez, 10,000 Dutch troops, forming a total of 50,000 coalition forces to arrive in Santiago, which was a great help to Chile. However, the arrival of these four countries' troops in Santiago made it difficult for Arturo Lozán to let down his guard. After all, if a neighbor sent troops to support his country, then his own land would be exposed to the other side's iron hoof. If the other side suddenly had evil intentions, then Chile would also face the fate of being invaded. However, when he saw Martínez, who was very calm next to him, he felt relieved. After all, with the existence of this Dutch killer, they probably wouldn't dare to do so. After all, the formation of the five-nation coalition was initiated by the Netherlands to jointly defend the five countries. It was the first time in the world that the world paid close attention to it. If the other four countries took advantage of Chile's misfortune, the Netherlands would definitely be humiliated. The Netherlands is now in its rising period, and it values face and unity the most. At that time, it will definitely be angry and embarrassed. At that time, the four countries will not have a good harvest. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. At present, the Netherlands has dominated the Pacific Ocean and is unstoppable. Chile is located in the southeast of the Pacific Ocean. Its narrow coastline is opposite to the South Pacific Islands of the Netherlands and Australia and New Zealand across the Pacific Ocean. Taking over the coastline of Chile means that the Netherlands has absolute dominance over the entire South Pacific region. In addition to Peru, Ecuador and Colombia to the north, the Netherlands is even more wrapped in the South Pacific. Martínez glanced at a few people and said at this time, "We frankly put forward our Dutch idea, that is, the five-nation coalition formed by the Netherlands is headed by the Dutch Navy, establishing a Pacific Rim defense line to establish a peaceful and prosperous ocean. Our Majesty William has already created a plan, which is to combine the funds and technology of the Netherlands, implement this common line of defense and security, and fully help all countries develop their economies. If everything can be achieved as expected, then in the future, our countries around the South Pacific may not be impossible to build this place into the next transatlantic prosperity zone and establish a prosperous sea. The Netherlands actually wants to build the South Pacific into new transatlantic. Such an idea, just thinking about it makes people excited. Seeing the excitement of several people, Martinez continued to persuade, if it succeeds, then you can imagine that Colombia will definitely not be weaker than the German Empire, and Ecuador can even become the new Denmark or Portugal with its location advantage. As for Bolivia, look at the map. Hungary is very similar to Bolivia now, right? As for Peru, I think it is very similar to France, yes, more like France. As for Chile, I think if it is developed properly, it would be a good copy of Spain. As Martinez continued to speak, several people's eyes suddenly brightened. If they really let their country develop into what Martinez said, let alone becoming the real Britain, France, Germany and Spain, even if they can reach half of them, no, as long as they can reach 1/3, it will be enough for them to become the greatest leader of the country and their position will be more stable. So now, although they still can't believe that they can reach that point, it doesn't prevent them from thinking about how much benefits they can gain for themselves and their families in this process. Of course, on the surface, they are biased towards the Netherlands for the sake of national development. Arturo Lozan asked, how can the Netherlands help develop the economies of various countries? You know, Europe has been promoted and developed after several centuries, especially the coal economy and steam industry revolution launched by Britain in the last century. Now it is difficult to achieve such a foundation in this regard. When Arturo finished speaking, several people from other countries also sighed. Obviously, the excitement just now was suppressed by Arturo Lozan in a short while, as if facing the helplessness of reality. Martinez smiled and said, "Don't be pessimistic. Mr. President has said that Europe was mainly developed under the leadership of the British Industrial Steam Revolution. Now you have an opportunity." What opportunity? Several people couldn't help but look at Martinez. Martinez said, "The Netherlands is currently making every effort to promote the arrival of the Southern Electric Age. It can also become the Industrial Revolution driven by steam in Britain. The Electric Age will also cause the same Industrial Revolution. You all know that the Netherlands is currently developing rapidly every day, especially with the emergence of new inventions, such as electric lights, telegraphs, telephones, and I just learned that the Netherlands is preparing to promote the establishment of power stations across the country. As long as they are connected, the Netherlands will be the leader of the electrical age in the future. And now the Netherlands is followed by the German Empire and the United States. I believe you are all very familiar with the strength of these two countries, especially the United States in the north. It has relied on the transitional development from the steam age to the electrical age in recent years. Now the United States has become the fourth industrial country, and the German Empire has become the third, second only to the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. These two countries have surpassed the north and south of the French Empire successively. Arturo Lozan and others were immediately moved when they heard this. Martinez took the opportunity to add a sharp shot. Don't forget, the reason why Argentina is so prosperous now, in addition to their food, they also developed under the technology provided by the Netherlands. Arturo Lozan asked, I wonder what the Netherlands wants. Frank questions always make people uncomfortable, but they make people feel more real. Obviously, the president's questions touched everyone's mind. Those who answered more directly would feel more at ease when listening. Martinez looked at him seriously, and the other party did not back down. Martinez secretly praised him and answered frankly, the combined population of your 5 countries is 10.2 million. This is a huge market. The population of the Netherlands is a disadvantage compared to other major countries, so your 5 countries will be the future market for the Netherlands products. I don't know if you are satisfied with this answer. Chapter 673, is the Dutch arms sales the sum of those of Britain, Germany and France? 1878, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that it had signed a contract to export 50,000 style Mauser rifles to Colombia, help the country build a medium-sized naval port, for 2 years, and transfer 5 sailing warships of different levels from the Dutch military. The contract size was about 12.5 million Dutch guilders, £500,000. Because the European Times had distribution points all over the world, when everyone picked up the newspaper on the morning of October 10, 1878, they were all occupied by the headline above, The Netherlands won the championship again, and the scale of arms sales crushed all countries in the world. Attracted by this headline, everyone couldn't help but open it and read it down. This look really shocked the scale of the Dutch arms sales. It says that on October 9, 1878, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that it would sell 4 second-hand sailing warships to Ecuador, 7 to Peru and 10 to Chile. On this basis, the 3 countries purchased more than 1,875 style Mauser rifles from the Netherlands, with a military purchase value of about £1.7 million and 42.5 million Dutch guilders. The landlocked country of Bolivia also purchased 1,875 style Mauser rifles and 1,870 breech-loading rifled cannons from the Netherlands, with a value of about £200,000. In addition, on October 5, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced the signing of a military contract to export 1,875 style Mauser rifles, 2 ironclad cruisers, 1 steam battleship, and 48 1,870 style breech-loading rifled cannons to the Kingdom of Siam in the Far East. The contract value reached at least 30 million Dutch guilders, £1.2 million. These countries add up to a total of £3.6 million, which is 1.2 times the total arms export of the Netherlands last year, which was £3 million. In addition to the £1.5 million exported to Europe and America, the United States and Argentina in the first few months of this year, the Netherlands has exported £5.1 million so far, 1.7 times. There are still more than 2 months to the end of the year. No one thinks that the military business of the Netherlands will stop, so many people speculate that the scale of arms sales this year may reach twice that of last year. These orders this month can be regarded as huge orders received by the Dutch military factories. It has reached £5.1 million. Everyone was surprised by this number. You should know that the per capita GDP of the Netherlands is the highest, which is only about £200. This contract can be equivalent to the income of 25,500 people in the Netherlands. The per capita income of the United Kingdom is £150, which is 34,000 people. Germany and the United States, which have just reached £100, have more than 50,000 people. The Russian Empire only has a per capita income of £30, reaching a scale of 170,000 people. It is conceivable that the Netherlands has created an astonishing amount of revenue in the first 10 months of this year. These contracts have once again consolidated the Netherlands' position as the world's largest arms seller, surpassing Britain since 1870. In particular, the Netherlands sells arms to countries around the world almost indiscriminately. Even Britain bought the first generation of military submarines from the Netherlands a few years ago, which caused a sensation in the world. This further proves the reliability of Dutch arms and establishes the Netherlands as the leading weapon power. Sweden, Denmark, Turkey, and Spain signed new arms purchase contracts with the Netherlands this year. The Russian Empire was also very interested in the Dutch 1,875 Mauser rifle, so it also purchased more than 200,000 rifles last year. Newly established countries such as Romania, Montenegro, and Bulgaria have also expressed their intention to purchase from the Netherlands, preparing to purchase Dutch firearms and breech-loading rifled cannons. In particular, Bulgaria seems to pay special attention to the Netherlands' second-hand sailing warships, and is one of the latest potential customers to take over the Netherlands' second-hand sailing warships. All countries in the world have become customers of Dutch weapons, which is very important for consolidating the Netherlands' position as the world's #1 arms seller. The Netherlands' status as a huge arms exporter has made all countries politically pro-Dutch. The newspaper has experts analyzing the reasons why the Netherlands has become a favored arms supplier for countries around the world. First, the Netherlands has the ability to reliably and quickly supply cutting-edge weapons to the world. Chulalongkorn, the King of Siam and the Supreme Military Marshal of the Kingdom of Siam, recently signed an agreement in Bangkok to purchase weapons from the Netherlands. He said, "The French Empire invaded the Kingdom of Siam and the British forcibly occupied Upper Burma, which led to unrest in the Far East, and European countries entered a state of war between France and the German Empire. The Kingdom of Siam is now facing the threat of the British in British Burma and South British Malaya in the west, and the Second French Empire in South Vietnam and South Laos in the east. The Kingdom of Siam must have its own strong military as soon as possible, So this time the Kingdom of Siam has taken out a huge amount of money from its annual fiscal revenue in recent years to purchase weapons, of which the Netherlands' weapons account for the largest share. He also said that the fast arrival and high quality of the Dutch arms trade are his top priority. Other customers of Dutch weapons also expressed that the Netherlands' ability to supply weapons so quickly is a major competitive advantage of the Dutch military industry. This year, the scale of the contract for the Dutch 1,875 Mauser rifle is more than 100,000, and the South American countries that have recently purchased Dutch weapons have also experienced the benefits of rapid weapons supply. This may be the main reason why Bulgaria, Romania and Montenegro want to buy Dutch weapons. Given that the Netherlands currently has an unparalleled influence in the global military industry, the military equipment of Britain, the top arms sales power before 1870, is not as good as the most advanced equipment of the Netherlands, but it is enough to suppress other arms exporting countries such as France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the United States. Therefore, the Netherlands has a harmonious relationship with various countries, does not threaten other countries, and does not want to be extremely biased, which is also a major advantage for the Dutch military industry. Britain, Germany, and France are the top 4 arms exporters in the world, second only to the Netherlands. However, as the major arms importers in Europe entered the 8 years of peace since 1871, especially the Second French Empire and the German Empire had very bad relations with the surrounding countries, so all countries rejected the weapons of the two countries, and their share of the global arms export market had already suffered a huge blow. It is expected that the scale of arms sales in the Netherlands this year will be more than the sum of the 3 countries of Britain, France and Germany. For the Dutch military industry, this year will be a milestone year. The Netherlands even has to thank the German Empire for its self-defeating annexation of the surrounding German Confederation, breaking its promise to other countries and making the surrounding countries fear it, which led to other countries gradually moving away from the German Empire's military factories. France's arrogance also discouraged other countries. As the former top arms exporter, Britain sometimes caused controversy, especially because some governments have always been very dissatisfied and wary of Britain's global colonial policy. Britain's ruthless plunder of overseas colonies is terrifying, and many countries have been pressured by Britain's gunboat diplomacy. The fact that the United Kingdom likes to play a balancing act that is beneficial to its own interests with the countries on the European continent is even more annoying. Some countries that were colonized by the United Kingdom in the past or fought wars with the United Kingdom tend to regard the United Kingdom as a colonial power with the intention of colonizing them, so they are very wary. The Netherlands does not have this problem. That is, it is impossible to make all countries fully agree that the Netherlands is completely non-threatening to all countries in the short term. South Korea can also gain an advantage by relying on the image of a neutral arms exporter that will not arouse the vigilance of the purchasing countries. In particular, the Netherlands has now moved the capital of the Kingdom of the Netherlands from Amsterdam, the center of Central and Western Europe, to Melbourne in Far East Australia. This neutral imagination has been maximized and consolidated, and such a neutral image will become more important. The Netherlands has Sweden, Denmark, Spain, Greece and other closest military and political allies in Europe. It also has an ambiguous attitude between allies and partners with the Tsarist Russian Empire. It also maintains close ties with other neighboring European countries. Before the British and Dutch declared war, even the United Kingdom maintained frequent exchanges with the Netherlands. Outside of Europe, the Netherlands is allied with almost all South American countries except Brazil. In the north, the United States of America is also a major ally of the Netherlands. With the support of these close military and political allies, this is beneficial to the export of Dutch weapons. The Dutch weapons system uses a lot of the most advanced technologies in the world. Although these technologies may not completely crush the United Kingdom, France, Germany and other countries, everyone knows that the exported weapons are not the latest or most advanced technologies in the Netherlands. But they are also quite exquisite, enough to compete with the weapons currently in service in Britain, France, Germany, and other countries, so that their countries can catch up with the weapons currently in service in European powers after purchasing them. This will help improve the military strength of various countries after purchasing Dutch military equipment. Countries that import weapons made in the Netherlands, especially those small and medium-sized countries, are well aware of this situation, so they are happy to buy Dutch weapons, even those second-hand weapons that the Netherlands is about to eliminate, such as sailing warships and the earliest manufactured Mauser rifles. This wave of South American countries and the Kingdom of Siam purchasing weapons from the Netherlands reflects this advantage. Dutch military enterprises are happy to resell their own inventory or old weapons in the Dutch army as middlemen in arms export contracts. This way, they can get income from middlemen and reduce inventory. At the same time, as the old weapons in service in the Netherlands are eliminated, the Dutch government will take new orders from the domestic military after they are eliminated. Enterprises can be said to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. The rapid delivery of second-hand weapons, that is, spot weapons in the Netherlands, has given the Netherlands a comparative advantage in the arms sales market that is much more competitive than other countries. The European Times finally said that the image of the Netherlands being able to supply reliable and modern weapons relatively quickly compared to other countries has been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Although the Netherlands is an ally of many countries in Europe and the United States, it is regarded as a fairly neutral actor. It has a very close relationship with current European countries and has huge trade and political ties with countries outside Europe. This provides a continuous advantage for the Netherlands to gain more competitiveness as the strongest exporter of completed industries. Finally, the conclusion is that judging from the amount this year, the Dutch military industry has gradually recovered, but it also proves that the world may fall into turmoil again. No one took it seriously, but when the time came to October 10th, they were stunned by the speculation of the European Times. It was so accurate. Chapter 674, Distribution of Power in Argentina. Argentina, Presidential Palace. It's absurd that the Netherlands actually carried out large-scale arms sales to Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru in just 1 day, and almost all of the arms sales were in the spot mode, and all the weapons could be in place within 2 months. In this way, almost all the countries in South America have become militarily strong countries. Argentina has always been the leader of the South American countries to guard against Brazil, and the countries are very dependent on Argentina. At this time, the Netherlands is playing such a trick, which is completely undermining our power and balancing our influence on the countries. After saying that, Argentine President Mitre was very upset and smashed a coffee cup in his hand to the floor. The cup broke when it hit the ground, and the pieces of the cup flew everywhere. The people next to him were all Mitre's confidants or political allies. Vice President Sarmiento, Minister of the Interior Joino, Minister of Finance Shakes, Minister of Food Sicalo, Minister of Industry Tut, Mayor Carter of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, etc., are all figures who can shake the Argentine political arena with a stomp of their feet. Argentina's political system is different from that of the Netherlands. The latter is a constitutional monarchy, while the former is a federal system like the United States. In the federal system, the relationship between the whole country and its components is an alliance. The federal government cares about national sovereignty and is the subject of foreign relations. Therefore, in Argentina, President Mitre is the most important person in foreign relations, while other local forces respect him as the co-leader, but not necessarily the boss. At most, he is the head of the most powerful force. Sarmiento is currently the leader of the second largest force in Argentina. By analogy, the current division of positions in Argentina is based on this. The Argentine federal government has the highest legislative and administrative organs and judicial organs in the country, which exercise the highest power of the country and lead its federal government members. Well, that is, including the members of the major forces in Argentina. Argentina implements a federal system, so all forces recognize the unified federal law of Argentina and comply with the unified laws of Argentina that represent national interests. Under the formulation of federal law, local members of various forces in Argentina have their own legislative, administrative and judicial organs, their own constitutions, laws and unified nationality, and manage public administrative affairs such as finance, taxation, culture and education in the country. This is the power shared by the Argentine federal central and local governments. The division of powers between the Argentine federal government and local forces is stipulated by the federal constitution. If the federal constitution conflicts with the constitutions of member states, the Argentine federal constitution and laws shall prevail. To put it simply, Argentina, a federal country, is divided into various local administrative divisions. Argentina, based on reference to other countries such as the United States and France, also adopts the same approach that the country is composed of local forces and regional members. Local administrative divisions are the foundation of the rule of federal systems such as Argentina. The result of regional division, according to certain principles, is that national sovereignty encounters the existence of forces in various administrative regions, and each member unit within the federation has priority to share the government with the country. As the most powerful force in Argentina, Mitre territory is located in the most fertile land in eastern Argentina, namely Buenos Aires Province, Santa Fe Province, La Pampa Province, Córdoba Province, and Paraná Province. Vice President Sarmiento's family is entrenched in the south, owning Rio Negro Province, Chubut Province, Yucuén Little Province, Santa Cruz Province, and Tierra del Fuego Province. It is far from the center of the northern part of Argentina's most prosperous headquarters. This is why President Mitre is relieved of Sarmiento. The family of Minister of the Interior Joino occupies the Mendoza Province, San Luis Province and San Juan Province in western Argentina. The family of Finance Minister Shax is in La Rioja Province, Catacamarca Province and Tucumán Province. Food Minister Sicarlo's father-in-law is in Santiago del Estero Province, Salta Province and Jujuy Province. Industry Minister Tuts Chaco Province and Formosa Province. The remaining Corrientes Province and Misiones Province are the territories of the current Argentine Senate President Posse and the Speaker of the House Ham. So, except for Senate President Posse and House Speaker Ham, everyone else present is our local lord in Argentina, or the spokesperson for the family's power. Everyone present here is my most capable assistant in overthrowing former presidents Justo José de Urquiza, Santiago del Quito Rodriguez, and Juan Esteban Pedernera. Mitre said solemnly, "You can say that you have shared the joys and sorrows with me to create the great foundation of Argentina today, and have also gained tangible benefits for the expansion of the power of various families. Now, from December 12, 1861 to now, I, Bartolomé Mitre, have ruled the federal government of this country for 17 years. The country is still prosperous and stable, and its strength is steadily increasing. Argentina's total economic strength is no weaker than Denmark's, catching up with Portugal and entering the top 10 in the world. With the technical support of the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, we already have the production capacity of old-fashioned firearms, which can be regarded as self-sufficient in part of the demand. We have always been fighting with Brazil over who is the boss in South America. Now King Pedro II and Prime Minister Fonseca in Brazil are fighting for power, and Portugal, which Pedro II relies on, is becoming less and less important in Europe. Fonseca has the support of the United States Federation, and the strength is so strong that it is difficult to determine the winner. Therefore, at present, Argentina is definitely the most united and the strongest in South America. Everyone must have a dream. My dream is to make Argentina a place that all countries look up to in South America one day. Although Argentina has become one of the most powerful forces in the world, on par with Brazil, it is difficult to achieve my goal." As if he had finished his sigh, Mitre said half negotiatingly and half firmly, "So we must seek a breakthrough." The others were moved when they heard this, and all showed a look of concentration. Mitre looked around, and after seeing that they all showed respect, he felt proud and satisfied, and then he said in a gentle tone, "The Netherlands relied on us to maintain its influence in South America, and then exerted influence in Venezuela, Colombia and Ecuador. For Argentina, when faced with a threat of Paraguay, which was ready to move, Uruguay, we chose to support the Netherlands. It was right. Later, in order to guard against Brazil and Portugal, Argentina had to rely on the Netherlands to balance European countries when the original ally, the United States, was divided and weakened. Of course, the economy and technology of the Netherlands are also what we want, so we came together. Now, after nearly 20 years, the Netherlands has become strong enough to threaten Britain. On the contrary, our cooperation with the Netherlands has now become a situation where the Netherlands is too strong and we are too weak. In South America, only Brazil and the Netherlands have a good or bad relationship, and other countries are all under the influence of the Netherlands. This is inconsistent with our original idea. We, Argentina, cannot become a slave of a European country after Brazil. So, I decided. Sarmiento's heart was pounding. He knew that Mitre's next decision would affect the future fate of himself and the people present, especially himself, because he had already learned from some intelligence that Mitre was going to make the decision. The whole conference room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, and no one dared to breathe. Seeing that the atmosphere was right, Mitre announced, "I have decided that we in Argentina need to balance the influence of the Netherlands in South America, So I have decided to push the 30,000 Argentine troops currently stationed in Mendoza City, Mendoza Province, westward to threaten Arturo Lozan's Santiago. Of course, we declare that we do not recognize Arturo Lozan's position as President of Chile. Chapter 675, The British Navy was attacked. 1878, 6 a.m. British Empire, London. Buckingham Palace. Alice, as the Dutch arms business grows, more and more countries have close diplomatic relations with the Netherlands, and the Netherlands sells more and more weapons to them. Now countries are becoming more and more dependent on the Netherlands. Queen Victoria sighed. Back then, Britain was always the world's most powerful arms seller. Even the German Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire were very proud of being able to buy British naval warships. I didn't expect that with the rise of the Netherlands would take its place. Britain suffered heavy losses. Prime Minister Clayton did not object when he heard this. Queen Victoria said, "How does President Mitre of Argentina respond?" Clayton replied excitedly, "Everything is under control." Mitre is very ambitious, so this time when we mentioned that Britain was willing to support their actions, he couldn't wait to agree. Queen Victoria nodded and said, "In Brazil, Prime Minister Fonseca and Emperor Pedro II are currently fighting fiercely. The confrontation between the Brazilian aristocracy and the capitalist forces is becoming more and more intense, so Brazil has no time to deal with other countries. This has provided Mitre's Argentina with a huge strategic opportunity, so it is understandable that Argentina wants to take the opportunity to become bigger in South America." Clayton hesitated and finally said vigilantly, "According to the news from MI6, the German Empire seems to be very interested in Paraguay. Is it the Central South American country with a population of only 400,000 that was supported by Napoleon III back then? The small country that almost fought with the Brazilian Empire and Argentina because of Uruguay?" Queen Victoria was surprised, and suddenly, she seemed to understand why Clayton was worried. "Your Excellency, Prime Minister, are you worried that the German Empire is going to interfere in South America?" "Claxton, Your Majesty is right, it's Paraguay, but what I'm most worried about is that the German Empire is not interested in Paraguay. I'm more worried that the German Empire also has ambitions for Uruguay. The most worrying thing is that we need to be careful that the German Empire will take advantage of our fight with the Netherlands in Chile and then take the opportunity to enter South America and form a three-way confrontation with us and the Netherlands." The more he talked, the more Claxton felt that it seemed to be the case. He looked at the Queen and revealed the same worry. Claxton asked, "Should we inform the Netherlands to prevent the German Empire from taking advantage of the situation?" Queen Victoria shook her head and smiled bitterly. "The nature is different. The Netherlands challenged us because of the core issue. The Netherlands wanted to take the opportunity to compete with us on the ocean. On the contrary, the German Empire expanded its overseas influence. And as I said, they did not directly attack the traditional allies of the Netherlands. This is a compromise with the Netherlands. Similarly, Britain has not become their target. Therefore, if we block the German Empire at this time, then our recent attempt to win over the other side to conduct naval exercises in the Northwest Indian Ocean will be ruined." Claxton frowned and said, "Bismarck and William I are indeed shameless and insidious, but we have to admit that their plan is impeccable. Since Napoleon III was captured by the German Empire, Paraguay has immediately turned to the German Empire. In recent years, the German Empire has surpassed the Second French Empire to become their most important military aid country, and it is also a half-ally of the German Empire in South America. At this time, Argentina and Brazil are wary of Germany's intervention. I am afraid that in order to guard against the German Empire, Argentina will have to make certain concessions to the Netherlands." Queen Victoria, "No, Argentina's Mitre won't do that. We can see that from the fact that he was able to rely on the Netherlands to overthrow the previous government and quickly take power. Over the years, the Argentine Federation is full of his political allies, so the German Empire's support for Paraguay will not pose an immediate threat, not to mention that after more than a decade of development, Paraguay currently has only 600,000 people. Argentina has a population of over 4 million, and Brazil has a population of 10 million. Facing these powerful neighbors, those from the German Empire will not act rashly, unless something unexpected happens in Argentina and Brazil." Clayton worriedly said, "Is the Queen afraid that Argentina will be dragged into the war in Chile by us, and then they will take the opportunity to launch an invasion on the northern border of Argentina?" Queen Victoria nodded and admitted, "The German Empire has always been very courageous, and this possibility is more than half, not to mention that Brazil is still in internal strife. If something unexpected happens in Uruguay at this time, it is not impossible. The situation in South America made the two of them very upset, especially when they knew that the German Empire intended to intervene. They felt that it was a hodgepodge, and European countries seemed to be interested in exerting their influence there. At present, the United Kingdom only has some small islands in the Caribbean Sea in addition to its overseas territory, British Guiana, in South America. Chile was originally a strategic location in the eastern Pacific Ocean of the United Kingdom, but now 2/3 of Chile's territory has been cut in half. Fortunately, the United Kingdom still controls the southern part of this 1/3 of Chile's territory, which controls the Strait of Magellan and the Drake Passage in southern Chile. Suddenly, Buckingham Palace welcomed the British Foreign Secretary Greville Gower. His face was full of solemnity, and his hand holding the telegram was shaking a little. After the symbolic salute, he said sadly, "Your Majesty, Prime Minister, something big has happened in South America." Queen Victoria and Claxton immediately felt bad. The Queen hurriedly opened the telegram sent by Greville Gower. When she unfolded it, she felt dizzy and shocked by the bad news on it. Moreover, this bad news was not the worst for her, but only worse. Force yourself to calm down in shock. She handed the telegram to Claxton, who was impatient on the side. The latter opened the telegram and read it in a few seconds. Then, his expression was the same as Queen Victoria and Greville Gower's, very ugly. Greville said angrily, "Damn it, the Dutch actually attacked our fleet there at 6 a.m. Chilean time. This time the loss was heavy. Our entire fleet actually lost 6 warships in this sneak attack. In addition, there were 2 ships that were damaged and unable to fight again. A total of 15 ships in the fleet, since there are only 7 ships left. Valdivia port was bombarded by the Dutch fleet, and we could only rush south. We have been defeated and retreated to Puerto Montt in Corcovado Bay in the south," he said, and in terms of the army, the Mascaiano government was also completely defeated under the attack of Arturo Lozan's army, and also evacuated to the town of Osorno, 50 kilometers north of Puerto Montt. Claxton asked in disbelief, "Didn't the Netherlands only have 9 warships?" Queen Victoria also looked at him in confusion, which made Greville Gower smile bitterly and said, "But they mobilized more than 20 submarines. The Dutch used submarines to attack and disrupt the order of our fleet. Then, while the fleet was in chaos, the Dutch surface ships directly attacked us underwater and on the surface, and we were defeated." Queen Victoria stopped Clayton from asking more questions and ordered, "Go to Mitre, Argentina, and tell him that otherwise the support Britain promised to give him will be void. The deadline is 1 week." Clayton immediately told Greville Gower about the plan, and then the latter left quickly. Obviously, the situation in South America has caused Britain to face an unprecedented crisis, and a quick victory is necessary. Clayton immediately said, "It seems that William IV is ready to fight us head-on. In this case, it is time for us to show our intimidation." He did not say anything about intimidation, but the Queen nodded. "Yes, it seems that we were too merciful in the past. I hope that God will forgive the tragedy caused by the fierce revenge of the Avengers." Queen Victoria immediately gave an order, immediately asked the South African fleet to block the entire South African offshore waters with the Cape of Good Hope as the center. As long as the ships are flying the tricolour flag of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, they are not allowed to dock in our South African ports. At the same time, not only in South Africa, starting today, Dutch commercial ships and warships are not allowed to pass through our Suez Canal. Gibraltar also supervises all Dutch ships passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. If there are suspicious ships, they can board the ship to inspect them. Clayton asked hurriedly, "In the name of what?" "I'm afraid of causing various countries to worry about Britain's rule over the major straits and causing a backlash." Queen Victoria shook her head, "Just use the excuse that there are British fugitives on the Dutch ship. Excuses are everywhere, just like during the Opium War. Also order that starting today, all British territories will not be allowed to import Dutch industrial products. At the very least, the Dutch and British territory are required to leave the British-controlled land within a week." Clayton said, "There are more than 20,000 Dutch people in the UK, of which 9,000 are in London, and the remaining 7,000 are distributed in other parts of the British Isles, 2,000 in Canada, and the remaining are distributed throughout the UK's overseas territories. If we force them to leave, will it cause major economic problems?" He looked up and said awkwardly, "The Netherlands has developed rapidly in recent years. Most of the 20,000 people are high asset owners, or they are involved in financial stocks, securities, futures and other economies in London. If this happens suddenly, there will be problems for the British economy. Queen Victoria looked at him sharply, then sternly said, "The current situation does not allow us to retreat, just do as I say." After that, she slowed down her tone a little and said harmoniously, "Don't worry, we have plenty of tools to subdue these new problems. Don't forget, we have the help of the Rothschild family." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.